Area are seeking a meeting with senior council officials ahead of next week's budget meeting to discuss what they say is a major deficit in investment in the area. The issue was raised by Councillor Murray Tress-Gallagher, who says a number of initiatives which would benefit West Donegal are still at strategy stage and there's a lack of money being made available, particularly for tourism-related projects. She says with no public leisure centre, the amount of money coming into the MD is already much reduced and says that's an issue that must be discussed.
These are legacy issues and I think something that we need to discuss with centre management of the council. We're delighted here for Port and Ardmore development ongoing at the minute. However, we need to be ensuring that all the other towns and villages in the west of the county are getting schemes similar to that, and that's the conversation we're hoping to have at a meeting with the management prior to the budget.
Donegal County Council is being urged to install more dog foiling bins in Letterkenny. It comes as concerns have been raised over dog poop bags, rather than being disposed of appropriately, are being thrown over a hedge or left hanging on trees. 150,000 free poop scoop bags were provided by the council this year as a measure to tackle dog foiling. However, Councillor Kevin Bradley says there is simply not enough bins.
Don't get me wrong, they're provided 150,000 bags, there's not enough bins. The problem is with residents, people are throwing, they're walking past, it's too far to the next bin. If they see a hedge or a ditch, they're throwing the bag in across the hedge and they're hanging up trees places if you're out walking. I do believe a few more dog foiling bins would be appropriate in the town.
And plans which will see the introduction of a gambling regulator will go before Cabinet Ministers this morning. One of the main roles of the new body will be to look at the impact technology has had on the gambling industry. The Gambling Regulatory Authority of Ireland will do this by regulating advertising, gambling websites and apps. The bill will also provide for a new approach to the licensing of gambling in Ireland. Weather now mainly dry and sunny today with light to moderate southerly breezes. Highest temperatures of 10 to 12 degrees. That's all from Highland Radio News for now. We'll be back with news again at 10 o'clock. Until then, good morning.
If that sounds good, so will this. Save up to €300 off your car insurance cover when you buy online at libertyinsurance.ie. That's based on a 25% discount for new policies. Up to €300 off your car insurance. That's money for living. That's Liberty. Future-proof. Subject to a minimum premium and applied before optional covers. Acceptance criteria, terms and conditions apply. Liberty Seguros Compañía de Seguros y Reaseguros S.A., trading as Liberty Insurance, is authorised by the General Directorate of Insurance and Pensions Funds in Spain and is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland for conduct of business rules.
The 9 Til Noon Show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages with life cover provided at no additional cost. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127. The county's #1 talk show, The 9 Til Noon Show on Highland Radio.
And now, it's time for the talk of the Northwest, The 9 Til Noon Show with Greg Hughes on Highland Radio.
And it is a very good morning to you. We're very welcome along to a special edition of the 9 Till Noon Show. It is Tuesday the 15th of November. It's 4 minutes past 9 and we're broadcasting today live from an outside broadcast at the Clanry Conference. The Clanry Hotel. It's a very significant conference. It's a Defective Concrete Research Conference with a ton of guests here, and we're going to be speaking to many of them over the next while. We have a series of panels which we'll introduce to you. We'll talk to those affected by it. We'll talk to those behind the Micah campaign, and also a number of scientists with their unique insight into this to see where we're at and where we're going. It'll all unfold for you over the next 3 hours, so stay with us. Get involved in the conversation as well, of course. 086 60 25,000. WhatsApps and text to that number, or give us a call on 074 91 25,000. You can email comments at highlandradio.com, and if you want to watch the show, including our guests on it, you can go onto our website right now, highlandradio.com, or you can go to YouTube, Highland Radio Ireland, or any of our Facebook pages, and you can see our guests here at the Clanry, all going well. And also, just after 10 o'clock, we'll have Community Guard information with Garda Sergeant Charlene Anderson as well, so stay tuned for that. Right, okay, let's look at the newspapers this morning, see what's making the front pages. We'll skip through these today. An inquest into the death of a Churchill horse dealer who died in a suspicious circumstances is to get underway this week. Donegal coroner Dr. Dennis McCauley has listed the inquest into the 2012 death for Wednesday and has indicated that the inquest, which will be heard at Letterkenny Courthouse, is expected to last 5 days. The Derry Journal, a simple headline, "Do Something," under which we read that Inishowen woman Rosina Doherty has personally told Minister for Health Stephen Donnelly how people are dying due to a lack of cancer facilities in Donegal. Rosina, who lives in Clonmany and is receiving treatment for cancer at Letterkenny University Hospital, staged a mini demonstration as Stephen Donnelly, the Minister, opened a health centre on Friday and urged him to update cancer services and facilities in Donegal. She had a good hearing with the Minister, and you can read more about it in the Derry Journal, or you can also go on to our social media where you can catch up on an interview we did with Rosina yesterday. As you can imagine, lots and lots of coverage across all the national newspapers following the sad passing of Vicky Phelan. She passed away yesterday morning. And just reading the front of the Irish Times here, Vicky Phelan refused to sell her soul for settlement. She would not accept the institutional silence and could not remain silent. Her courage captivated us. Yes, this amazing woman may have been dying, but her spirit and determination was life itself. And there's, as I say, loads of quotes and pictures and coverage of the contribution that Mrs. Phelan had made. And as I say, it's well covered in all of the papers today. We read in the Irish Independent that motor insurers have been accused of profiteering after the merge. Their profits are continuing to surge while they are passing on tiny premium cuts to motorists. So they appear to be passing on some cuts, but they're still making an absolute fortune. They could do much more because the insurance in this market have now made operating profits of 730 million in the past 5 years alone. An enormous figure when you consider the population of the country and then you consider how many within it drive. Combined operating profits of the motor insurers in this market hit 176 million last year as the industry began to benefit from major government reform. So in other words, payouts on is big, but they're not passing on the savings to us, so their profits grow. That's the way it's working, isn't it? In the Daily Mail today, Taoiseach Micheál Martin has said Ukrainian refugees have not been included in long-term housing plans as the government does not expect the vast majority to stay here. Mr. Martin was responding to revelations in this newspaper, as they say, about a dramatic underestimation of housing needs and a potential shortfall of 65,000 homes in 2030, even if the existing ambitious targets are met. And somewhat ironically, whenever they talk about housing needs and emergency housing, it never really is inclusive of the housing crisis we're facing here in Donegal, with the extra crisis, of course, of people needing emergency housing, and will need additional housing if houses begin to become completely unlivable for more people. And of course, whilst new houses are being repaired, if the scheme ever takes off, and there's a big uptake in it. But anyway, internal documents department records state that in reality 42,000 new homes are needed per year, well in excess of the estimated 27,000 homes. The shortfall is caused by unmet demand and population growth, and it does not include housing required for over 63,000 Ukrainian refugees who've arrived in Ireland since February. The lighting, not fantastic in this room. I'm not going to lie, to read newspapers. I should have bought my glasses. But anyway, elsewhere in the front, inside the Irish Daily Mail, the West can avoid a new Cold War with China. Joe Biden said yesterday as he played down the threat of an imminent Chinese invasion of Taiwan. After talks with Chinese Premier Xi Jinping, President Biden said the US would compete vigorously with China, but competition should not veer into conflict. With a battle, a proxy war of sorts raging in Ukraine, it's good to see that relations between China and the US seem to be on steady footing. At the very least, so hopefully that stays the same. We don't need any more, do we? On to the Irish Daily Star this morning. A woman begging for money outside a cathedral was arrested after complaints to Gardaí. A court heard yesterday. The Romanian national, who's 53, was at Letterkenny District Court yesterday after she was arrested during 10 a.m. Mass at St. Eunan's Cathedral in the Donegal town. Garda Melissa Brown said they had received complaints about a woman begging in the cathedral footpath. On arrival, they found Miss Callum on a sleeping bag with a paper cup and some change in her hand. Garda Brown said she was not annoying passers-by, but was arrested and taken to Letterkenny Garda Station. Now, I'm not really quite clear what she was arrested for, because she doesn't seem to have been causing any bother, or it's not at least stated that she was, but anyway. The Irish Sun tells us that at least 865,000 of us will benefit from 5 cost of living bonus payments over the next 2 weeks. The cash is to help people pay soaring bills. Some 370,000 households will get the €400 fuel allowance bonus paid out by Taoiseach Micheál Martin's government on 3 separate dates. People who receive the disability allowance will get the €400 lump sum on November 16th. Those getting deserted wives benefit or the invalidity pension will get the bonus on November 17th. Everyone else will get it on November 18th. So many of you perhaps very anxiously waiting for that money, particularly given the time of the year. So there's some timelines for you. Let's get on to the Irish Daily Mirror. It's the last paper of the day, in fact, and it tells us that an international dating site that pairs young women with wealthy older men has noted a sharp rise in the number of hard-up Irish nurses signing up. Chiefs of US-based SugarDaddy.com have attributed the soaring cost of living and skyrocketing rental market to a substantial rise in registrations from Ireland over the past year. More than 5,000 so-called sugar babies, it's all very icky, isn't it, have registered to the service over the last year, with numbers surging by 37% between June and September. According to newly released data, the number of cash-strapped healthcare professionals, including a substantial number of nurses, has increased by 41% more than any other sector. Typically, the average sugar daddy is aged between 35 and 55 with an above-average income, often a doctor, lawyer or business owner. Meanwhile, sugar babies tend to be between 20 and 35 and above average looking. It's all really quite uncomfortable, isn't it? But anyway, they're seeing a big surge in that regard. Right, 086 60 25,000 if you wish to comment on anything you heard there or raise your own issues or you need something else for us to mention. 086 60 25,000. You can also give us a call on 07491 25,000, 07491 25,000. We're very shortly going to be met or joined by our first guests on the programme. These are familiar faces and voices to you. Dr. Eileen Doherty, Joe Morgan and Professor Paul Dunlop will introduce them properly to you after we take this commercial break. Stay right where you are.
The newspapers are courtesy of Kelly Centra, Mountaintop, Letterkenny.
The 9 Til Noon Show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union. Seasonal loans now available for Christmas. Apply online or via our app today and get your loan transferred directly to your current account.
Look, you've heard by now that there's something major happening in the banking industry, which will mean thousands of businesses up and down the country will have to move banks. This means that as well as change in banks, suppliers and customers will need to be notified. It's certainly not something you want to leave until the last minute. So, for a step-by-step guide on moving your business banking, search Bank of Ireland Big Move. Begin.
Bank of Ireland is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Since she got her free hearing aids with her PRSI at Specsavers, Roisin is a changed woman. Music has never sounded better, and that makes her dance. And dance. And dance. Her singing, though, well...
Free hearing aids with PRSI at Specsavers. Music to your ears. Find out more online. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you frequently asking others to speak slowly, clearly and loudly? Is listening to the TV or radio becoming harder? If your hearing is affecting your everyday life, Connect Hearing are here to help. Our clinics in Letterkenny and Dunloe are open Monday to Friday, where you can avail of our hearing test, wax removal and repair services. Take that first step to better hearing. Call us today on 07491 13296. Connect Hearing, connecting you to life.
Hello, Hill 16 Insurance. How can I help you? Up the dubs.
Hi. I am looking for a home insurance quote.
Righto, and what part of Dublin do you live in?
I don't actually live in Dublin.
Right. Do you least support the dubs?
What? I'm just looking for home insurance.
Well, you're going to have to keep looking, pal, because Hill 16 is Dublin only.
Do you get the feeling that your insurer doesn't want you? Well, at Local Insurance, we are Irish-owned and understand your needs. Call us today for a bespoke quote on 0818 894 444. Local Insurance, we'll get you sorted. The Local Insurance Network, DAC Trading's Local Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Local Insurance is a tied insurance intermediary of Acorn Brokerage Limited. Acorn Brokerage Limited, trading as Acorn Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Cutting through the spin. The 9 Till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
Okay, you're very welcome back to the Clanry Hotel here for this special programme. We're joined by our first guests on it now, Joe Morgan, one of the organisers of this event. Joe, good to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us. So we joined you, really. You were here anyway, but good to be here. Dr. Eileen Doherty, another organiser, of course. Eileen, good to have you on the programme.
Good morning, Greg.
And last but not least, Professor Paul Dunlop. Right, I'll start with you, Professor, if that's all right. Why do you think this conference was needed, and give us an idea of how important you believe it to be?
I mean, this goes right back actually to 2017 when the government published its special report on defective concrete, and one of the things that they said is that they come up with recommendations on what they thought the problem was, but they also recommended that we needed further research. And I think going back to the end when the scheme opened up and people started getting their homes tested in 2020, and there were all our deleterious minerals coming to the forefront in people's homes, and there was a real question mark over whether that was a problem at all. There was a lot of sort of denial that it might even be a problem in the first place. Then we had all our people talking, going, "This, we can't ignore this. All our deleterious minerals are really impactful on concrete." So there has been a real need to try and get a research group looking at that aspect, and to try and get to the sort of bottom of what's happening in concrete, because as we've seen in the last, how this story has been unfolding, it's certainly more complex than what originally was thought. And really, the only way that you'll ever get to the bottom of what's actually happening is to look at the detail and do detailed scientific analysis of what's happening in concrete, and get the best people in the world to start doing that work.
Do you think, in a way, that the way it played out, in other words, it was really quite easy, I think, for the majority of people to understand when it was defective blocks? Do you know what I mean? And it was mica as part of the campaign. Do you think that it would have been better if we'd have known more of the science back at the beginning of this, or do you think really the way things have worked, the timeline's working really quite well, if that makes sense? Because as soon as you start saying deleterious, and I cover this a lot, I start sort of going, right, am I be able to follow this? Defective blocks, mica, I can.
I've come to the sort of conclusion that the best way of looking at this situation is just calling it a defective concrete issue, because there are different factors that are playing into that. And I think that the only way we're ever going to get to the bottom of what's actually causing the defects is by doing research. Yeah, mica was an idea that came out a few years ago, and mica does impact on the quality of concrete, but there are other minerals that are in concrete that also impact very negatively as well too. So we've got internal sulfate attack, which is a process that's well known to destroy concrete, and there's evidence of that in Donegal as well too. But I think a simpler term is needed, because it's becoming very complicated, because people are talking about mica, people are talking about iron sulfides. Some people don't know what iron sulfides are, and there's just a mix-up of terms. But ultimately, this is all boiling down to defective concrete products.
And this all happened because of how these blocks were manufactured. Is that correct? In other words, if other practices were followed, we wouldn't be having this conversation, or is it more complex than that even?
Well, for me, there when I look at this issue, there are standards that have been in place for aggregates and for concrete manufacture in Ireland, because we're part of the EU. There's very clear standards there that are have been around. NSAI have adopted those standards and developed their own sort of adaptation of those. And those were there for a reason, and the reason is if people follow those guidance, we shouldn't have been here. So I know from the pyrite heave issue, Eileen maybe could talk a little about that as well too, because she's been doing some research on that. There were clear statements about this should never happen again. For me, as someone who's involved in science and understanding on what we know about geology and geological minerals, if those are the main issues that are impacting on concrete, and if people are following standards, guidance and testing, this was an avoidable disaster, I think.
Yeah, okay. Dr. Eileen Doherty, it's been a long journey to get to this point, and it's still, the destination is still a far way off in the distance. How significant do you think today is?
Today is incredibly significant. I mean, as you say, Greg, this has been 8 years, I think, we've been campaigning at this point to get the best solution for all those people affected. And I think to add to what Paul said, a key element of this conference today is also to look at the societal impacts. What does that mean? It means that the actual real impact that this crisis has on families, the real crisis that this is having on commercial property owners, and lots of, there's lots of stakeholders in the community that are affected, and today we'll get to hear those voices. I mean, we as advocates have tried to communicate those issues to both local and national government over the last number of years, but today I think it's great that these families will have the opportunity to actually reflect, to convey their experiences directly to a lot of the key decision makers and stakeholders in relation to this issue. So whether they be government representatives or local community representatives or politicians or whatever it is. And I think that's incredibly significant because those voices do not get heard enough. And so I think a combination of the science part, where we have to ensure that the reviewed IS 465 or the protocol that guides the assessment of these buildings is informed by the science, as Paul talks about, the complete picture in terms of the multidisciplinary aspect, and also Joe's session on the EU and looking at the EU directives that were not adhered to from a government level. I think this is an incredibly important day. This is the first time that anything of this nature or this size has ever happened internationally. We have the best experts in the world here today to look at and examine this issue, and ultimately the key aim of this conference is to find solutions. We need to start looking forward. We need to start thinking about how can we best work together. Ultimately, the people who are affected are who are here to represent, and we need to ensure that we do that to the best of our ability.
But there's something a wee bit strange going on here, because you say we need to, right? But that's like the royal we. This is the type of, and I think I mentioned this to you, Paul, the last time I was speaking to you, this is the type of research conference or the type of thing the government should be doing to get a full handle on this, to ensure it never happens again, to ensure that people are treated fairly in this whole process. I think it's really important that it's happening. But everyone in the housing department, everyone in the construction industry, everyone who has an interest in this should be sitting at this, because they are also the we, if
yes.
You understand where I'm coming from.
I do indeed. And actually, myself and Joe were in the actual working group last year with the government where we represented families. And one of the things that we did at that working group is we actually raised the issue of bringing all of these experts at that time to Ireland to have this very type of conference. We assumed that there would have been immediate action by the Department of Housing and that would have happened. Unfortunately, it didn't. So I think what happened once again is it fell to people like ourselves to sort of use our own initiative and just to make this happen. So, I mean, we're almost a year since we were at the EU in Brussels with Luc Ming, who kindly brought us on a delegation, and this issue was raised last December. And the idea was, and Luc Ming has very kindly supported and worked with us over the last 12 months to not only have a seminar online hosted by the EU in March, but also to bring this together today. So incredibly grateful to Luc, to Mark, to Emma and John and the team who've actually made this happen too.
Yeah, and there's a few things through this crisis that we're learning too, and I think you kind of hinted towards it on a national scale, is how we deal with responsibility and accountability in this country, not just on this issue. I mean, this is an example of it, but I think there's serious lessons need to be learned in that regard. Not only how we deal with this crisis, but so many others.
Yes, and actually, Paul has kind of intimated also. My presentation today is talking about lessons learned, and one of the things I've done in my presentation, and I presented a paper and conference paper last week in Portugal, is looking at what the Irish government should have learned from Pyrite or Pirate Heave, which, I mean, they had their own report published in 2012, which is 10 years ago, where they had a significant number of recommendations from Pyrite and said these are the lessons that we have learned and we will now take these on board going forward. And 10 years later, a significant number of those recommendations have not been acted upon. So we need to ensure that there is a genuine will at government level, and that they're not paying lip service to this type of stuff, and that actually there's a real, genuine need and that they're keen to actually resolve issues such as this.
Yeah, and Joe Morgan, there's a moral issue here, but there's a legal issue as well, be it internally, but also Ireland in a European context as well. And I mean, that's been taken up quite a bit of your focus too.
Yeah, Greg, I think to Eileen and Paul's point, the conference in terms of its importance, it couldn't be overstated just in terms of keeping this issue and the crisis that we're facing in Donegal and down the western seaboard and beyond actually at this stage at the forefront of the Irish psyche. That is predominantly and foundationally why we're here. The conference itself is foundational in science, and Eileen's going to cover societal impact type areas. My own focus area has been with the EU, so that started back in December, as Eileen has alluded to, where we went to the EU specifically to ask them to make sure that our government would implement EU regulation and make sure that this didn't happen again for future generations, our children and their children. Subsequent to that, and I'll go into it in a little bit more detail during the presentation at the conference, we've had a scheme pass through the Dáil in July. And that was a very pivotal moment in terms of the research that we were doing with the EU in terms of regulation, because it meant that we know we have a scheme coming early next year, which is still flawed. It's still going to lock out a significant percentage of homeowners from engaging with it and being able to remedy their homes, which is what we want to get to.
Just before you get to that, though,
Go ahead.
because, sorry, Joe, it's flawed in the sense that people are going to be left behind. Is it going to be scientifically flawed?
Do you want to take that, Paul?
Well, at the moment, I would say yes, because the whole defective concrete block grant scheme is underpinned by IS 465 protocols. Now, in fairness, that has been tasked to be reviewed, so NSAI are doing that review at the moment, and they are reaching out into the scientific community, because myself and Andreas Lehman and Thomas Campbell, another engineer who's been testing homes in Donegal, and Mayo, we were invited, and we give evidence to the IS 465 TC63 committee, who are dealing with the review. So they are reaching out and they try and understand what's happening with the
Are they
pyrite.
truly independent? Because, there is ways, if you wanted to. I'm not suggesting for a moment that anything on the hand might be happening, but I mean, there are ways you could try and keep a lid on this in terms of the scope of those findings.
Well, sorry, I don't know what you mean.
Financial lid on it, for instance. If you widen it out, if you widen the scheme too far out, I mean, it could go into many multiples of the reasonably conservative remediation monies we're talking already.
Well, I mean, that's something for the politicians to understand. I mean, as a scientist, our main primary goal is to try and understand what's happening. So as a scientist, that's all we can do. We have a problem, we investigate it, we look at data, we produce analysis, and we produce our results and we present those. And all we can do is sort of go, this is what's happening, and how it's fixed is up to politicians.
Yeah, that's after that point I was talking about, after your... okay. Joe, go ahead.
But just going back, you asked the question about is it a flawed system? I think that IS 465, the review, will happen this year, and at some point in time that's going to catch up. But as it stands at the moment, people are getting their homes tested. And in Donegal today, they're still primarily focused on mica, and in everywhere else they're looking at pyrite. But we know we have got multiple issues with defective minerals and concrete. So at the minute, that needs to catch up.
All right, Joe, do you want to pick up where you were at there? Sorry.
Yeah, just in terms of that pivot, Greg. So just to summarise, our focus to date has been to look at engaging with the EU to bring them to the table to make sure that this would not continue to happen, i.e. that there would be enforcement of EU regulation pertaining to concrete product manufacture. Right now, since July, we know we have a scheme which is going to continue to be flawed for a lot of people. So what we're now doing is changing that tact, if you like, and looking to the EU to help engage the Irish government relative to the parameters of the scheme. So that's to help the existing generation who are experiencing and impacted by defective block today. So we're looking at specifically human rights regulation, and I'll be covering it in detail, but that brings in specific areas of regulation which we can connect to the issues that families are going through today. And if we get a bite in Europe and we get an acceptance there, we've only made the submission in October, so there's going to be a little bit of time involved. But if we get acceptance there in terms of the arguments that we're putting to them, there is a foundation for initially political pressure from the EU to the Irish government to make changes to the scheme, which will be hugely impactful relative to those families which are today continue to be locked out of the scheme.
Yeah, and do you think that's achievable?
Greg, I have to think it's achievable because there's a lot of effort being put into it.
Because I think even people who are have intimate knowledge of all of this at this point, they're just, even those that might be able to access this enhanced scheme, but still might find themselves having to find tens and tens of thousands of euro. I just wonder sometimes these words feel like, well, yeah, we're talking a lot, but what's actually going to change? Do you think there's room for hope? And it's very important this progresses, by the way. I'm not questioning that for a moment.
No,
but
it's a
do you
good
get where
question.
I'm coming
Yeah,
from?
it's a good question. And look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Any political engagement is a long-term effort, right? But I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't think there was a positive outcome possible. And the fact that we're doing it in and of itself and maintaining awareness within the EU arena in and of itself brings a level of embarrassment relative to our Irish government. So that in and of itself, in terms of that political pressure, will certainly help the process, right?
Can I just make a quick point,
do.
if you don't mind, and if you don't add to Joe's? I think the question about is it achievable, we were asked that for years and years and years when we were lobbying for a scheme. And people talk about the 90-10 scheme being flawed, but what people very often fail to understand is that at the outset of this, there was no scheme. The Irish government took no responsibility whatsoever. So people kept saying to me and Anne and others in the Mike Action Group, you may give up, you shall never ever get a scheme. And as Joe said, we wouldn't be doing it if we didn't think there was a possibility. And I think it's important to keep that in mind.
And the reason I asked the question was because some people need to hear that again.
They do, they do.
Do you get where I'm coming from?
Of course.
Eileen, is there an elephant in the room here in that really, it seems to be, if you look at the polls, the likelihood is that Sinn Féin could lead the next government. They've promised the sun, the moon and most of the stars, it would seem. Do you factor that in?
We absolutely will welcome anything from any political party who will enhance the scheme. We are absolutely across every party, so we don't care who gets in as long as they deliver what we have been seeking for our families, which is justice and which is 100% redress. So we welcome anything that any of the political parties are willing to give us.
Very political answer. Well done,
I always go back to a very, very primary sort of understanding of what government's role is, and it's really set up to try and make sure its people are safe and it has its resources so the society can thrive. So its primary responsibility is to look after its citizens, and I think to date, in terms of defective concrete blocks, they haven't done that. They had a really good opportunity to do it in the summertime, but you saw yourself when the legislation was going through the Dáil, every single amendment that was put forward to try and make the scheme accessible, fair and just were totally rejected on the floor of the Dáil.
Joe, you talked about, and you've all talked about what's been achieved so far, which shouldn't be underestimated. It really is quite significant, but so much more to do. But that's been done with a lot of very good public messaging, great work on social media, that type of stuff, because there's a battle for the public's minds here. And we saw earlier this year where very senior members of the government, very clear in that, do you know what I mean, that they were trying to manage the sort of public opinion on all of this. Is it important not to lose sight of the importance of a good public relations campaign, to be able to relate this very clearly to the masses, Joe?
I might pass that to Eileen, given that she is our press officer.
Trying to spread it around a bit.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know. Yeah, I think
I'll add to it.
Well, thank you, Joe. Yeah, I think it's really important to have those relationships. I mean, we have created those relationships over the last 8 years. We have very good relationships with the media, and it's really important to communicate. I mean, I think one of the things that we find from families is that people get very frustrated that they don't know what's happening. And actually today is a really good opportunity for families to come and listen. And I think it's important to say that, to come and listen and to get a lot of those questions answered that they have. Very often we ourselves, we're volunteers, we have full-time jobs and those kind of things. And sometimes the communication is not ideal and families don't really know what's happening. So again, this event today is an opportunity for people to come along and to hear. And yes, absolutely, it's important for us to continue to have those relationships, to keep that message.
Yeah, Joe, on that point, just in terms of people's access to this, okay, this is a fantastic room here in in the Clanry Hotel, and there's lots of space. So is it not too late for people to come to this conference? And are there alternatives for people who can't actually make it here?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a massive facility here at the Clanry, and I'd like to thank the management of the Clanry for providing the facilities. If there are people that still want to attend, haven't yet registered, I'd encourage them to register for our own administrative purposes to understand how many are coming. But that said, if you don't register, you can still turn up, right? And then if there is people that cannot make it in person, we're also, again, through the funding from the Left Group and from Look Ming, we have the facility live streamed starting from 1:30. That's going to be live streamed on both Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, they can drop in. So say, for example, if you look at the schedule online and you only want to come for one session, that's okay. So don't feel as if you're committed to from 1:30 to 10 tonight. So if there's a session that suits you more, then please feel free. So we just want to make sure that we cover and address all of.
Do you know what we might do? Stay where you are. I think Paul's going to stay with us for the full hour anyway. But what I will do, Eileen, with you and whoever wants to jump in as well, we'll actually run through the what's going to happen over the course of the day, so people can dip in and out. Because as you say, there's a lot there.
There's a lot.
And we'd hope people could consume as much of it as possible. But there's realities of life as well. Right, stay where you are. But we'll be back with more after the break.
The 9 Til Noon Show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
Live like a Bosch at Irwin Expert Electrical. Call in-store in Letterkenny or Buncrana to view a range of Bosch home appliances, from ovens, hobs to washing machines and dryers. With over 20 years experience and expert advice, make it Irwin Expert Electrical, Letterkenny or Buncrana. Find us on Facebook.
Ballybuffet is the ideal place for all your Christmas celebrations this year. You can enjoy a festive atmosphere with excellent service and outstanding food at the Villa Rose and Jackson's hotels. We have a lively array of party nights, events and hotel packages to choose from. Visit us for festive dining with friends in one of our cosy and inviting bars and restaurants. See jacksonshotel.ie and villarose.ie for full details.
Don't sleep in and miss the very latest beds and mattress offers from dfibeds.ie, Ireland's leading online bed and mattress retailer. You'll get a comfy Irish-made mattress, upholstered base and headboard from an amazing €229. Check out the full range at dfibeds.ie. Delivery free and guaranteed to you within 7 working days. DFI Beds. Sleep well, live well.
Make Christmas for everyone this year at Dunnes Stores. Make delicious coffee quick with the Tassimo Happy Coffee Machine from Bosch. Now just $39.95. That's better than half price. And pick up a perfect present with selected toiletry gift sets like Dove and Nivea for men, now half price. Plus, with our 10 or 50 grocery vouchers, you save even more. Dunnes Stores. Make Christmas for everyone. Terms and conditions apply. Voucher can be used in next grocery shop of €50 or more.
At Shane Connolly Car Sales, Donegal Town, our cars come fully serviced, which is all included in the price, along with AA roadside assistance. Trade-ins are accepted and we offer great finance options. Did we mention the excellent customer service we offer, which is one of the reasons customers keep returning to us? Check out our social platforms or visit ShaneConnollyCars.com today.
Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why. The Euro Millions jackpot is an estimated €40 million. Play responsibly, in-store, in-app or at lottery.ie. The National Lottery. It could be you.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
Okay, you're very welcome back to the Clanry Hotel. We're broadcasting a special programme from here today. There's a Defective Concrete Research Conference that's running. That's what I'm calling it, because I can't get my tongue around the rest of it, because it's complex, and it has to be too. But we still have our guests here. We've got a couple more people joining us before 10 throughout the day, of course, as well. But we're going to get an international flavour. And also we have Dr. Andreas Lehmann. How important has Dr. Lehmann been, Professor Dunlop, to where we have gotten here now?
I think he's been a real key scientist to be engaging with over the last year. He was someone who I found just by searching the sort of scientific literature on defective concrete. Andreas has been working for a long time on this. He's one of the sort of top leading scientists internationally, and he's very, very highly regarded. And there are people you can talk to that today when you're interviewing them. But Andreas has been really key because his understanding of what's happening in concrete is at a very, very high level. And the laboratory systems that they have in EMPA where he works is the best in the world.
Yeah, for me, he kind of blew stuff out of the water in a very simple way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like for Andreas, you know, he has the knowledge. They look at the concrete in detail, and has a lot of experience of understanding what the processes that are happening in concrete. And so for him, he could very quickly analyse a piece of some of the samples that I sent him across, and had very strong conclusions and very strong scientific evidence that there was internal sulfate attack linked to pyrrhotite oxidising in the concrete. So he's been having people at that level with that credibility is really, really required, particularly when you're trying to get something like a national government to listen to you.
Yeah, I get you.
Can I just add to that, if you don't mind as well? Not that I can talk about it from a geological point of view, but I think one of the key things, I suppose, for the layperson maybe to understand is that Andreas has also undertaken research in the Irish context in terms of Donegal and Mayo, and he may be able to shed some light on the viability of outer leaf replacement. He also may be able to shed some light on...
When you say that, is there a viability in outer leaf replacement?
That's what we need to ask. That's what Andreas will be. I suppose maybe you could ask him today. And the same about foundations, and he will speak about that at the conference today. So I don't want to preempt what he's going to speak about. But I think having people like Andreas and Benoit and Jose and Kurt and all the other scientists that have come here at the minute, those are the kind of answers that we need. You know, are the propositions from the Irish government in terms of how our homes are going to be fixed, are they viable? Are they reasonable? And therefore, what does the science tell us? That's one of the things I think we're keen to find out.
Joe, do you think there'll be consensus here today? Or maybe Paul, do you want to answer that one? I don't know. But do you, like, in other words, we all arrived at our opinions? Or, I mean, I would imagine there were, I don't know what they call it at major conferences internationally, but, you know, a lot of the chat goes on the night before, or, you know, sort of proxy almost. But, like, we've an awful lot of very intelligent scientific people here today, and myself. I feel out of place. But do you think there's consensus here, or are we still working through?
I think, honestly, my honest opinion is I think we're at the start of the journey. I think we're at a place that should have been happening 3 or 4 years ago, where we've got, I mean, I was going to announce it at the conference later, but most of the people who are speaking at the conference today have been accepted to do research for the Geological Survey of Ireland as part of a tendering process that they put out last April. So we are actually going to be starting to do the research now. Hopefully now at the end of this month, the project will kickstart. And we have a group of really amazing, incredible scientists who will be able to look at that, and the science that we're doing will start feeding into the IS 465 review process. So I think the research that myself and Andreas has done has been the first look at it, really from a fresh set of eyes. We weren't constrained by any IS 465 protocols. We just looked at the concrete and go, well, what's going on here? And so we've come up with an idea of what we think's happening. But for us as scientists, we need to have a representative sample, and we need to broaden that research out. And we need to involve people who know what they're talking about. So we have some of the best people in the world who deal with foundational concrete. You'll hear from them today. We've got a massive issue in Connecticut and also over in Canada. And we've got people who have been at the forefront of developing the technology to try and understand what happens with foundation concrete. So they are now here in Ireland, and they're part of a multi-frame framework agreement to do research here. So I think we're at the start of the journey, but I think within the next 6-12 months, once the government gives the funding to GSI to start the research, I think we'll get answers fairly quick.
And I think it's worth me pointing out to listeners and those with an interest in this that during the course of this programme we're going to try our best, but we are only scratching the surface, and this has been laid out in such a way to give people who know what they're talking about a good amount of time to tease out all of this. So if you want to get across this whole thing, well, hopefully this is a taster for you on this program, but certainly register to either come personally or to attend online. So we'll run through briefly then between 1:30 and 1:40. That's the conference opening. And then the following hour then, that really is talking about, is it, Eileen, where we are at in terms of the 90-10 stroke enhanced scheme?
Yeah, the session after we open is what we call, myself, Joe and Paul, call the government session. And effectively that's where we have representation from John O'Connor, who's the former Chief Executive of the Housing Agency, who has also been the liaison that was appointed by the Minister for Housing between families and himself last year in the working group. John will bring an update on the enhanced scheme. He will talk about the legislation, what it'll look like. He will be able to talk confidently about the role of the housing agency in the new scheme, what the role of the local authority, all those types of questions. There's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of fear around the new scheme. The housing agency coming in, the fact that people are terrified that they might not qualify for the scheme. John will be able to clarify a lot of those things. Very important to listen in, I think, to what he has to say. We also have Martin McDermott from Donegal County Council, who's the chair of the steering committee on defective blocks, and he can talk about what's happening at the council, some of the delays and some of the key issues that we face in terms of the administration of the scheme. And then we have Damien Owens, who is the Director General of Engineers Ireland, who will be able to talk about some of the challenges maybe that engineers are facing on the ground, maybe looking at things like the expansion of the scheme to other counties, those kind of things. So that session is incredibly informative in terms of from a government level, in terms
and it's
of
conversational as well, so it'll be quite engaging for the audience.
Yeah, and there's a lot of questions that people have, and I think listeners should listen in, and hopefully they should find an answer to some of the fears and concerns that they have, and that over the last number of months.
Okay, do you know what? After that, Paul's going to be sharing something. I don't want to eat up too much into time and then not get to some of our guests. That's my fault, by the way, because I keep going for some reason. I don't know when. I just don't know when to stop. So what we'll do, we'll take a break. Paul's going to stay with us for the rest of the hour. Eileen, you might dip back in with us, or Joe, whenever you want to, just to run through or pass on the information you feel might need to be done. But let's take a break as we line up our next two guests, and we'll be right back with more.
The 9 Till Noon Show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Do you need to switch your Ulster Bank loan or overdraft? We are now offering competitive low-rate switcher loans and MyCU current account with overdraft.
McCullough Jewellers in Letterkenny are synonymous with fine jewellery, quality watches and giftware. With stores at Main Street, Letterkenny and the Letterkenny Shopping Centre, or online at ormccullough.com. You can choose from their quality product range in a relaxed atmosphere, and their sales staff will be happy to help you make the right choice, whatever the occasion. McCullough Jewellers, making moments magical for generations.
With a smart meter, you can take full control of your home's electricity usage. But here's the important bit. Only if you sign up to an Electric Ireland smart meter plan. Our personalised usage insights will help you make the most of your electricity. So if you'd like to find out the perfect time to put on a wash, or see how your bill's looking on any day of the month, search Electric Ireland smart meter plans and find out the best plan for your home. Smart meter required. T's and C's apply.
Is your car or van winter ready? Get your free winter check now at Hegarty's Ford in Letterkenny. It includes checking your lights, wipers and coolant. Also, the most common cause of winter breakdowns, your battery. And what you depend on most to keep you safe on the road, your tyres, where the tread depth should be at least 1.6 millimetres. Hegarty's will check all these and more to keep you motoring safely through the winter and beyond. Get winter ready by contacting Hegarty's Ford in Letterkenny today.
Walk the line once again with the multi-award winning Johnny Cash and June Carter tribute show Cash Returns. Celebrate the music of the Man in Black at the Alley Theatre Strabane on Saturday 26th of November. Limited tickets are available now at the box office. That's Cash Returns live at the Alley Theatre Strabane, Saturday 26th of November.
Candles, lanterns, Christmas trees, decorations and all types of lights. Everything you need for Christmas. Experience the magic of Christmas at Cooney's. Our biggest and best Christmas shop has outstanding value on lights and trees. There really is something for everyone at Cooney's Letterkenny Retail Park.
This December the 23rd, you could own a brand new car worth 30,000 euros. What a wonderful automobile. Island Radio is giving away a brand new Nissan Juke SUV worth 30,000 euros. Someone, and it could be you, will get a call from Greg Hughes on the 9 Til Noon Show on December the 23rd.
You just won a car.
Yes, steady on, that could be you. If you've got the lucky ticket, simply go to highlandradio.com, click on the car link, answer an easy question and buy a ticket for €10, 6 for €50 or 10 for €80. Highland Radio's great car giveaway. Surprise, surprise. Get your ticket now.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 Till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
Okay, you're very welcome back to the programme. We're broadcasting live from Clanree Hotel here in Letterkenny, ahead of a Defective Concrete Research Conference, which is pulling in the expertise and knowledge from a wide range of people, and it is truly international. We're joined by two of these experts now. First, we'll say good morning to Professor José Duchesne. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Can you talk to me, please, about the work that you're doing in your country and what we might be able to learn from that, Professor?
Yeah, we had an issue with pyrrhotite and defective concrete in Trois-Rivières in the area of Quebec. And since 2010, we have a research project working on an effort to develop a quality control protocol to evaluate the potential reactivity of aggregate prior to their use in concrete.
Go ahead.
We have a big issue with that, and for Canadians, it's important that it will be the only case and that in the future, concrete will be of better quality.
So you're here really, and we can learn from you, but this is a learning exercise for you as well, isn't it? I mean, how surprised were you to learn of the extent of a problem with defective concrete in Ireland?
Yes and no, because we had the same problem in Canada, because we know that some cases were with pyrrhotite were observed in the literature previously, but each time it's a new problem. It's sometimes long to discover the problem because it's not so easy to detect the pyrrhotite first and the damage that can cause pyrrhotite. Because a small amount of pyrrhotite can destroy a complete concrete structure. Yeah.
Do we need to understand more about what I'm trying to get at here is can all of these problems, do you think, be avoided using the current practices of how we make concrete?
I think we can avoid it, but with a good quality control on the aggregate.
Yeah.
And this is not an easy way because it's really complex and aggregates are... There's a lot of different type of aggregate use, and we need a good quality control.
What has been the reaction from the authorities in Canada to the problem with defective concrete blocks there?
We are working with the standardization process, and Benoit can speak more about this because it's involved in the process of the standardization.
Let's bring Benoit in. Yeah. Professor Benoit Fournier. Good morning. You're very welcome to Ireland. Everywhere I've turned over the last week, I've been meeting people from Canada. It's like half of Canada is here. It's it's not just here, but everywhere. But it's lovely, and you're all lovely people. So what has been the reaction to this? Like, I'm trying to figure out at what stage of your journey you are on in Canada.
Yeah. Well, basically, when the first cases were recognized, it appeared to be a surprise at the time, in a sense. But we did have, in the Canadian standard, some statements saying that if you use aggregates that contain certain mineral types, including pyrrhotite, that you may get into trouble and you may have some durability issues. So it was included in our standard, and but you know it may be there, but at the same time, when you have not necessarily noticed that to the extent that it developed in Trois-Rivières, then it came as a sort of a surprise at first. But then cases kept accumulating, and people got to work and understand what was happening. And all sorts of experts from different consulting companies were involved, because it went to court, and then with the work of those experts, a number of different possible explanation for the mechanisms got mentioned, and at the end, you know, all the scientists and the engineers involved actually converge towards the end result, which was the implication of pyrrhotite.
Can I ask you, are you confident that things have changed in Canada to the point whereby defective blocks, defective concrete products are no longer being manufactured?
Yes, I think at this time we have in our standards, and as Jose was mentioning, when we had the research started in 2010, quite shortly after that, we have a process of standardization. It's a 5-year cycle in Canada where we actually update our standards every 5 years. And the committee working on concrete standards in Canada is composed of about 50 people, engineers and researchers from different parts of the country. And that, I would say, towards 2012, 2014, we were able to introduce in our standard an appendix explaining what was the problem and mentioning about what are the potential solutions. And then after the result of a PhD candidate, our research actually was incorporated in Canadian standard as a new testing protocol for aggregates in order to make sure that it won't happen anymore in the future.
And Professor Chesney, you would have seen some of the images and heard the conversation about how these defective materials are affecting Irish homes. Is that the similar experience in Canada? Are these homes deteriorating to the point where they're no longer livable?
Oh, yeah. And but in Canada, the cases were really fast. Some buildings were completely cracks after 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
And in Quebec, we have a warranty for new houses, 5 years warranty. Then for those with problems in the first 5 years, they completely replace the foundation. But in Canada, it's not concrete blocks. It's poor foundations.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, yeah.
And it's just the foundation because we use wood structure for the rest of the houses. Then they just lift up the houses, completely demolish and replace the foundation.
I mean, Paul, that's interesting, isn't it? Because we're going to be speaking to Andreas a little later on this. But I mean, we can probably look elsewhere already to see where we're going.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the issues that we have in Ireland, as you know, is that the protocol at the moment ignores foundations. We don't test foundation concrete.
Well, already a lot of government representatives seem convinced that foundations could never fail.
Well, I mean, I always found that quite an incredible statement, particularly because when you look internationally, what's happening with foundation concrete in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and also in the Trois-Rivières in Quebec, we know that very high-grade, high-strength concrete that has pyrite in the aggregate can completely destroy it.
And this
the
takes
process
me back
is well known.
But Paul, this is what takes me back to the earlier part of the hour where I said to you, at some point, are they going to try and keep a lid on this? Because if you start talking about foundations, will outer leaves go out the window?
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. But, you know, like, the way I approach it is from a scientific point of view is basically we need to try and find out what the mechanism of failure is. You don't develop a scheme on an assumption that there's a problem and then try and work backwards because the scheme is going to be flawed from the very beginning. So I think from a few years ago, this type of work should have been being done. They should have been testing concrete foundations. And I've said, you know, I mean, the foundations might be okay, they might be totally fine, but we don't know, and it's totally flawed to make an assumption that they will be by just tapping the concrete or I mean, we heard it in the Dáil in the pre-legislative scrutiny day that engineers were saying, well, they look fine.
Well, there was no crack in driveways and similar concrete.
Yeah, well, that's not good enough. You know, we know from an international context that very high grade quality concrete using foundations in Canada is completely turning into mush.
Okay.
And at a very rapid time scale. So I think it's wrong for Ireland to be thinking the same.
Well, we can't presume.
We can't presume.
Do the research. Everything based on science.
Yeah, we do the research. So that should be starting as of now.
It's important, isn't it, Professor Fournier, that we get this right, that we understand it. I think it's in everyone's interest that this is all out in the open now. We research, we understand, and we do the right thing and prevent this happening again into the future.
Well, that's the very critical part, and that was the driving force for us in Canadian Standard Committees to make sure that this won't happen again. And so that's why we implemented the results of the research rapidly in the standards. It's still at this time our recommendations are still not mandatory. They're because we still need in the testing scheme of aggregates to do some work to make sure that all laboratories carrying on the testing across the country actually do the things right. Because it's nice to test aggregate material, but if you do it wrong, you're not in better position.
It's complex,
so
isn't it?
It's complex. Yes.
And do you know what? I think the comments from both of you, it's going to be fascinating to hear more from you up there, because as I said earlier on, we can only scratch the surface, and I think we've an awful lot to learn from your knowledge and your experience as well. It's been lovely having the two of you this morning. I really appreciate it. And as I say, we really look forward to listening to more of you from you later. That was the voice there of Professor Jose Duchesne and also Professor Benoit Fournier. And we'll be back, and of course, we speak so often to Paul, I forgot, I don't even thank him anymore. It's fine. No, but listen, of course, Paul, of course, as always, thank you very much indeed. All right, we've got so much more coming up over the next couple of hours for you on this topic, but also we have community guard information as well. So stay tuned for all of that. We'll be back after the news and obituary notices.
Live, on air, online, and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, I'm Michaela Clark with the news at 10 o'clock. Professor Paul Dunlop believes the defective concrete block issue was an avoidable disaster. A 3-day research event to examine mica and other deleterious materials in concrete blocks gets underway today with a conference in Letterkenny. A number of leading international experts will speak about their own research and meet local engineers, officials and homeowners. Tomorrow, the international delegation will visit affected homes in Donegal, while on Thursday they will attend a workshop at Ulster University to strengthen research networks and discuss future research plans. Speaking on the 9 Til Noon Show ahead of today's conference, Professor Dunlop says if guidelines and regulations were followed, homeowners wouldn't be in this situation.
When I look at this issue, there are standards that have been in place for aggregates and for concrete manufacture in Ireland, because we're part of the EU. There's very clear standards there that are have been around. NSAI have adopted those standards and developed their own sort of adaptation of those. And those were there for a reason, and the reason is if people follow those guidances, we shouldn't have been here.
Searches are resuming this morning in the Twin Towns for a missing woman. Gardaí are conducting the search with assistance from Foyle Search and Rescue. The Coast Guard Rescue 118 helicopter spent time searching the area around the River Finn last evening before being stood down as light faded. A special workshop is to be held next week to investigate claims fraud beggars are being bussed into Letterkenny. The Cahirlock of the Letterkenny Milford Municipal District last week raised serious concerns over reports those purporting to be beggars are intimidating people. The workshop next week will involve Donegal County Council, Gardaí, St Vincent de Paul, social welfare representatives and the Simon community. Councillor Donald Mandy Kelly says it's important to differentiate also between people who genuinely may need help.
I do believe as well that this may not all be fraud, that there is some genuine cases out there as well, and you know that's something I really want to get to the bottom of as well. As if there is genuine people out there that's struggling, I want to do everything in my power as a local representative to help them as well. But if this is fraud that's going on as well, it's something that we need to sit down and have this conversation about it and see how we address it.
The Foreign Affairs Minister says accommodating Ukrainian refugees is putting Ireland under a lot of strain. Latest CSO figures show more than 62,000 Ukrainians have fled to Ireland since the start of the Russian invasion. 4,441 Ukrainian refugees are currently being housed in Donegal. Nearly 7,000 refugees are living in private accommodation across the country, and almost a quarter of hotels are now being used by the state to house Ukrainian refugees. Minister Simon Coveney says we need to keep playing our part in helping people flee the war.
And it's put the Irish system under a lot of strain in terms of accommodation, in terms of education, in terms of healthcare, in terms of social support. We know that, but this is something that every European country is trying their best to offer solidarity towards Ukraine on, and Ireland should be no different.
Donegal County Council is being urged to install more dog filing bins in Letterkenny. It comes as concerns have been raised over dog poop bags, rather than being disposed of appropriately, are being thrown over a hedge or left hanging on trees. 150,000 free poop scoop bags were provided by the council this year as a measure to tackle dog filing. However, Councillor Kevin Bradley says there is simply not enough bins.
Don't get me wrong, they're provided 150,000 bags. There's not enough bins. The problem is with residents, people are throwing, they're walking past, it's too far to the next bin. If they see a hedge or a ditch, they're throwing the bag in across the hedge and they're hanging up trees places if you're out walking. I do believe a few more dog filing bins would be appropriate in the town.
It's hoped Ireland will host 7 games of the Euro 2028 tournament. Ministers are signing off on a joint bid with the UK to bring the championship here in 6 years' time. Under the plan, Ireland would host up to 7 games between the Aviva Stadium and Croke Park. It's hoped the event would attract 120,000 football fans to Ireland and bring in hundreds of millions for the economy. Environment Minister Eamon Ryan thinks it would be great for Irish football.
I think a successful European Championships would give a boost to soccer in the country and help us get the facilities right across the country. We saw that in the past, back in the glory days with Jack Charlton and so on. Events like that, when there's real success and national kind of interest in the whole tournament, that actually helps the sport.
Weather now mainly dry and sunny today with light to moderate southerly breezes. Highest temperatures of 10 to 12 degrees. That's all from Highland Radio News for now. We'll be back with an update again at 11 o'clock. Until then, good morning. The obituary notices for this Tuesday morning, November the 15th. The death has occurred of Robert Bob McLaughlin, 102 Westway, Derry. Funeral leaving his home tomorrow morning at 9:20, going to St Mary's Church, Craigan for Requiem Mass at 10 o'clock, followed by interment in St Mary's Cemetery, Ardmore. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu of wish to Macmillan Cancer Support. The death has occurred of Jim Kelly, Capri Ballybuffet and formerly Ardmacharn Ballybuffet, reposing at his family home. Funeral leaving his residence at 10:30 tomorrow morning for Requiem Mass at 11 o'clock in the Church of Mary Immaculate Stranorlar. Interment afterwards in Drumbo Cemetery. The Requiem Mass will be streamed live via the parish webcam. The house is private to family, friends and neighbours. Family time from 9 o'clock tonight and before the funeral tomorrow. The death has taken place of Josie Doherty, née O'Connor, 2 Casement Place, Strabane, reposing at her home. Funeral leaving her home tomorrow morning at 10:25 for Requiem Mass in the Church of the Immaculate Conception, Strabane at 11 o'clock. Interment afterwards in Strabane Cemetery. Donations in lieu of flowers, please, to Melmount Manor Residents Comfort Fund, Kev Quigley Funeral Directors. The Requiem Mass can be viewed live via the parish webcam. The death has taken place of Laurie Faulkner, 9 Hawthorne Heights, Letterkenny. Remains reposing at his home. Funeral Mass this afternoon at 1 o'clock in St Junan's Cathedral, Letterkenny. Burial afterwards in Cornwall Cemetery. Funeral Mass can be viewed on churchservices.tv. Family time before the funeral today. Family flowers only. Donations if desired to the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland. Care of any family member. The death has occurred of Liam Duddy, 20 Derryveigh Avenue, Letterkenny, reposing at his late residence. Funeral from there this morning, going to St Junan's Cathedral for 11 o'clock Requiem Mass, which can be viewed on churchservices.tv, followed by interment in Cornwall Cemetery. Family time, please, before the funeral. Flowers welcome or donations in lieu to the Donegal Hospice, care of Pascal Blake, Funeral Director. The death has occurred of Susan Ward, Ireland's Burton Port. Her remains are reposing at her late residence. Rosary tonight at 9 o'clock. Funeral Mass tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock in St Columbus Church Acres, with interment afterwards in Critch Cemetery. House private, please, after the Rosary and also on the morning of the funeral. The death has occurred of Sadie McMenamin, Donegal Road, Ballybuffet. Remains reposing at her late residence. Funeral leaving from there this morning at 10:30 for Requiem Mass in the Church of Mary Immaculate Stranorlar at 11 o'clock. Interment afterwards in Drumbo Cemetery. The Requiem Mass will be streamed live via the parish webcam. Family time before the funeral today. The death has occurred of Madge Brown, née Martin, 223 St Junan's Terrace, Rafo. Her remains are reposing at her home. Family time, please, on the morning of the funeral. Funeral from her late residence this morning at 10:30. For 11 o'clock, Requiem Mass in St Junan's Church, Rafo, followed by interment in the adjoining cemetery. The funeral mass can be viewed live online via the parish webcam. And the death has occurred of Eileen McGee, Ned Rhea, Glentean Manor, Letterkenny, formerly from Gola Island, Cochin, Derrybeg and London. Funeral mass at St Mary's Church, Derrybeg this morning at 11 o'clock, with burial afterwards in Maharagown Cemetery. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu of so desired to the Donegal Hospice, care of John McGee and Sons Funeral Directors or any family member. For more details, including any family health guidelines for wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
And a very good morning to you. You're very welcome back to the programme. Or good morning if you are just joining us. We're broadcasting today live from the Clannery Hotel. It is part of previewing a special conference which takes place later today on defective concrete research. It's a very extensive conference that's covering all elements of this crisis, the human impact, the social impact, the scientific side of it as well. There are still spaces for those of you who wish to attend this conference in the Clannery. And you can also watch it online. It kicks off at 1:30 with an opening of the conference by the hosts and organising committee, and then there's lots coming up over the course of the day. We'll run through some of that a little later on. Just to remind you, you can watch the show on our website, highlandradio.com. Click Watch Live or go to YouTube, Highland Radio Ireland. Good morning to all of you watching us there, and also across our Facebook pages where you'll be able to see and interact with our guests. Feel free to comment on our socials or text in, as some of you have already. We'll be doing the community guard information item for you very, very shortly. But some of your comments coming in here: is the Housing Minister or any government representatives at this MICA conference today? Which is an important question, of course. Please ask if anything is going to be done about the payment for testing, as I know my house has it, but I can't afford the €6,125 to test. Well, we understand that once the new scheme comes into effect early next year, if the timeline is stuck to, you will have to pay, I think I was told, something like €400 or €500 for a preliminary inspection by an engineer. If they deem there's a possibility that you could have MICA, well then the government or the scheme will pay. It comes out of the total, of course, if you are accepted onto the scheme. But at that point, then you wouldn't have to find the €6,000+ that it would be paid for you. Greg, is the government going to give the working middleman something towards the heating or fuel to keep warm this winter, throwing it all to the social welfare person? We all lit a fire inside of €400. Why not give €200 to everyone across the board? I understand where you're coming from. Another, what's going on in Letterkenny? It almost seems as if the town is hell-bent on self-destruction. Why are elected reps and officials not being held to account over the utter traffic chaos in the town? Well, I hope you understand, if you listen to this programme regularly, I try to hold people to account. I try to highlight where the problems are, but yet they persist. I don't know what the story is going on there. Another caller says, hi Greg, fortunate beggars earn lucrative amounts from kind people who are often struggling to get by themselves. Also, they're robbing from those people who desperately need help. If this isn't a crime, I don't know what is. That's a general comment, which I think was a reference to a comment I made, whereas it wasn't clear why people were being arrested on what grounds, because I didn't see it outlined, and I was curious as to what it was. It was not to say they shouldn't have or whatever. I just didn't know under what grounds. Okay. It is time to take a break. Stay with us. Community Guard information is on the way, but first we'll take the bingo numbers and a break, and then we'll be right back here live from the Clannery. Stay tuned.
It's time for NCBI Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Tuesday the 15th of November. You're playing on the brown sheet. The reference number is S7. It's game number 46. The numbers are 28, 76, 66, 19, 2, 90, 43, 29, 6, and finally 63. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your NCBI bingo information at highlandradio.com.
The 9 Til Noon Show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union. Seasonal loans now available for Christmas. Apply online or via our app today and get your loan transferred directly to your current account.
It's a magical Christmas experience. St. Colum's Park, Magic Kingdom, featuring a spectacle of light, vintage funfair, Christmas characters, delicious food and drink, the chance to win prizes, and shop for gifts. Thursday 1st to Thursday 22nd December. St. Colum's Park, Derry, Londonderry. Don't miss out. Book now online or via Facebook.
From the smallest shrub to the largest tree in an awkward place, Donnelly Tree Services provide a complete range of tree surgery services. Whether you need to remove a dangerous tree or some nuisance branches, Donnelly Tree Services have the experience and expertise to carry out tree surgery to the highest of professional standards. Call 083 005 9939. Donnelly Tree Services, Donegal. No job is too small, no tree is too tall.
Build a better future with a digital transformation course. With digital transformation courses from Advanced Centre, you can improve the way we work together and do business. The power behind 3 of Ireland's leading universities, UCD, ATU Sligo and TU Dublin, have combined to offer flexible, accredited digital transformation courses, from individual modules to full programmes, starting in January. Your future is enrolling now. See advancedcentre.ie.
Uh-oh. Looks like last-minute Liam is in a spot of bother. He missed out on saving up to 50% on expressway coach tickets and guaranteed seats by not booking them early enough online. But not to worry, Liam. Lucy booked them in advance instead. Now all you have to worry about is not forgetting Lucy's birthday. Oh dear. Silly Liam. Offer applies on Route 32 between Letterkenny and Dublin. Don't be a last-minute Liam and Lucy. Book your tickets in advance online at expressway.ie.
Celebrating the 25th anniversary of the first Joe Dolan Bundoran Music Festival. A spectacular Christmas party night at the Allingham Arms Hotel on Friday, December the 16th, with the sensational Joe Dolan Show, Remembering Joe, featuring 5 vocalists with the Dolan family and the original Joe Dolan Band. Cabaret dinner and accommodation if required. Now booking at the Allingham Arms or online at showtours.ie. Revive the 90s in Bundoran on December the 16th at the Allingham.
The Community Garda information slot is brought to you by Sheridan Security Systems, protecting what you value most. Call today and get your zero-wire alarm system from €299. Sheridan Security, 91-26025.
Good morning. You're welcome back to the Community Garda information item for this Tuesday, November 15th, and we are joined here this morning by Garda Sergeant Charlene Anderson. Charlene, thanks very much for joining us.
Good morning, Greg. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Okay, we'll get straight to it, Charlene. And Gardaí are looking for the public's help as it relates to a fatal road traffic collision on the Ramelton Road in Letterkenny.
That's correct, Greg. Gardaí are investigating a fatal road traffic collision involving 2 vehicles that occurred at approximately 11:55 p.m. on Wednesday, the 9th of November, on the Ramelton Road in Letterkenny. Now, the front seat passenger, one of the vehicles, a female in her late teens, was pronounced dead at the scene. The male drivers, both of which were taken to Letterkenny Hospital with serious injuries. So we're appealing for any witnesses this morning to the collision to come forward. Any road users who may have dash cam footage and was travelling on the Ramelton Road in Letterkenny between 11:30 p.m. and midnight, we'd ask them to make that footage available to Gardaí. And also anyone that has any information in relation to the incident to contact Gardaí in Letterkenny on 0749167 Greg.
Okay, and there is also an appeal as it relates to an RTC in Fawn.
That's correct. So Gardaí and Buncrana are investigating a serious injury road traffic collision, and this occurred in Fawn at approximately 9:10 p.m. on Thursday, the 10th of November, on the R238 in Fawn Village. Now, in this particular accident, 5 people were taken to hospital, one of whom has serious injuries. So we're again appealing this morning for any witnesses to come forward in relation to the incident. We have any road users who may have dash cam footage and was possibly travelling on the R238 between Buncrana and Bridgend between 8:30 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. We'd ask them to come forward and make that footage available to us. They can contact us at Buncrana Garda Station on 9320540, or they can also contact the Garda Confidential line on 1800 666 111.
Okay, again this week we are putting out a number of appeals as it relates to burglaries.
That's correct, Greg. The first one is Gardaí and Letterkenny are investigating a burglary that occurred in Glenwood Park, Letterkenny, between 9:30 a.m. on Saturday the 5th of November and 10:30 a.m. on Tuesday the 8th of November. Now, in this particular burglary, the rear door of the house was forced open and entry was gained. A number of items were stolen from the property, including a 40-inch flat-screen TV, a smaller style television, a baseball bat and some darts. So we'd appeal to anyone who may have observed any suspicious activity in that particular area, that's Glenwood Park in Letterkenny, to contact Gardaí on 0749167
Yeah, and you mentioned a second burglary in that area.
That's right. So there is a second burglary that occurred in that area of Glenwood Park between 4:30 p.m. on Friday the 4th of November and 7:30 a.m. on Monday the 7th of November. Now, damage was caused to the lock on a door of a property and entry was gained. In this particular burglary, a tile cutter was stolen from the property. So again, we just appeal to residents in the area who may have observed any suspicious activity in around the Glenwood Park area, and that's from the 4th of November right through until the 8th of November. Sometimes even just a small nugget of information, Greg, something that people might feel that's maybe irrelevant, but it could possibly be something that could help us with this type of investigation.
Really important to emphasise that, and you have in the past. Don't sort of triage this information yourself. Don't think you're wasting Garda time. It could be the final piece of a jigsaw that makes sense to as part of a wider line of investigation.
Absolutely. And again, like the Garda Confidential line is there if somebody doesn't want to come to the Garda station, if they don't want to call into any of their local Garda stations. If they call the confidential line, on that number is 1800 666 111, and that information will be passed on to us and we'll progress the investigation.
All right, another burglary, very sadly, targeting St. Baithan's Church in St. Johnston.
That's correct. So on the 11th of November, between the hours of 11 a.m. and 4:30 p.m, the door of the sacristy at St. Baithan's Church in St. Johnston was forced open and a small amount of cash was stolen from the property. So again, we'd ask if anyone observed any vehicles or any people that may have been in the area that may have given rise to suspicion in around the church, maybe on that date, that's the 11th of November, just to make contact with Gardaí in Letterkenny.
Okay. And our last appeal as it relates to a burglary, this time in Carrigan's Main Street.
That's right. So a burglary took place at a house at Main Street, Carrigan's on Friday the 11th of November between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. It's believed that entry was gained through an unlocked door. Now, 6 gold rings were stolen and 4 gold chains. So one of the rings is a gold cladder ring. Then there's 2 gold rings that have that have Celtic writing and patterns, and the other gold rings were with like plain bands. So the gold chain also has a Celtic design pendant attached to it. Now, we will post similar pictures on our Garda Facebook page later on, and I do stress that they are similar pictures, it's not actual pictures of the items. But we would ask if anyone has any information, or maybe if they're approached in the next couple of weeks and they approach to Christmas to buy items of this nature, to contact us at Letterkenny Garda Station. And just in regards to, I know we've mentioned a number of burglaries this morning, Greg, but there is that Garda Property app. It's a free app, it's there for people. If they are buying items coming up to Christmas, they can upload their receipts, they can take pictures of those items, and they can also report the theft of items through the app to ourselves. So just to make people aware of that, because it is a free app.
And we'll probably talk about it in the future episodes too, Charlene, but we are getting to the point where people might be out shopping, buying high-valued goods, putting them into the boot of a car, going to the next shop, buying more stuff, and we know there will be people out and about tracking what people are doing. Do you know what I mean? So we really have to be on our high guard now, always, but particularly as we approach Christmas.
Absolutely, and it's really for people to be vigilant. Try and keep items out of sight, out of mind is what we would say. And again, look, high value items, try and take pictures of them if you can. It will help us in the event that something like this will occur. As I said, that property app is free. A lot of these crimes are opportunistic crimes, and if someone sees an opportunity and they just decide whether to break into that car or just enter that property. So again, just asking people to be vigilant, that's all.
Gardaí work hard to build up trust with the community, and unfortunately some people are seemingly exploiting that. Bogus callers posing as Gardaí. It's not an exclusive Donegal problem. Tell us what's going on.
Absolutely. So we've received report from our colleagues down the country. Now, as I said, it hasn't happened here yet, but down the country that there is bogus callers posing as Gardaí, and they're targeting elderly people's homes in a money scam. So criminals such as these can strike in any part of the country. So look, it hasn't happened up here as we're aware of yet, but that's not to say that it won't happen. So it's just asking people to be vigilant, that's all. And to contact their local Garda station, or indeed, I suppose, any Garda station, but the 24-hour ones here is Letterkenny, Milford, Buncrana and Ballyshannon. If something like this, if someone calls to their door, maybe reporting to be a member of an Garda Síochána, ask them for their identification. If they're not sure, if they're in doubt, don't open the door, make that call, and maybe we'll be able to clarify the situation over the phone. Also, Garda can do welfare checks, they can call out properties. If somebody has experienced this, that somebody is called to their house, maybe selling goods or purporting to be somebody that transpires that they're not, we can always check that out.
Yeah, okay. And I mean, the Garda Facebook page is a very valuable resource, a lot of information there, and the telephone numbers that you mentioned as well for the 24/7 Garda stations will be listed there, as well as the pictures and what have you, and this item will be posted there a little later on as well. So you know, I mean, obviously in terms of bogus callers, in terms of burglaries, it's the basics, the fundamentals, but they're very important that we don't let our guard down in terms of your home security, who you open the door for. Even those little catch locks can be very valuable. I mean, we can be polite, some of us can be too polite. We don't have to entertain people if we feel nervous about it or we don't know them. We don't have to entertain them.
Absolutely, and if in doubt, keep them out.
Yeah.
That's what we would say. But I suppose in general, it's the same guidelines that we would always issue. You know, just be mindful, doors and windows, ensure that they're locked, particularly if you're leaving the property, just double check that your windows and doors are locked. Ensure that, you know, your property, maybe if exterior light might help as a deterrent. I would also encourage maybe neighbours, if they live in close proximity to elderly and vulnerable people, just maybe keep an eye on them. You know, the nights have got a lot darker, the evenings. We would also say about CCTV, I know it's not practical, I suppose maybe for everybody, but at the same time, if they have CCTV at their property, it does help and it does act as a deterrent. You know, and again, as you said about the locks for the door, the chains that you can put on, you know, they're very valuable as well, because you don't have to open the door completely. You can just put your chain on and open it, see who they are, and maybe, you know, get identification from them if you're in any way doubtful at all. Also, there's panic alarms. We have something up on our Garda Facebook page at the minute, and just the process of obtaining those panic alarms. In some circumstances they are free, and they're issued to elderly and vulnerable persons.
Okay. Right, now, the Garda Centenary celebrations continue. There's a local exhibition.
That's correct, Greg. So there's an exhibition of Garda memorabilia, and that will open on Monday as part of the celebrations to commemorate the centenary of the foundation of An Garda Síochána. So the exhibition will take place at the Donegal County Museum at High Road, Letterkenny, from Monday the 21st of November until Thursday the 24th, and it will feature Garda uniforms and the history of An Garda Síochána. It's free of charge and it's open to the public, and if anyone would like to attend, we'd encourage them to go.
My father used to make Garda uniforms.
Right.
By hand.
Brilliant.
Yeah, well, there
Very,
you go.
very
I
good.
wonder, will any make the exhibition? Right, okay, let's get. It's free, by the way. Open weekdays, 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Just a couple of questions here. Read the marking of property in case of thieves. Can I ask the Garda to call to my home to mark things, or how do I go about getting my belongings marked for safety? Now, I'm presuming maybe that it could be a case-by-case basis, but it's a lot to ask if we're going to go out to each individual property. But what's the official line on that question?
Well, just as you said there, Greg, I'm sure sometimes it's probably not always practical to call to everyone's house to mark their property, but we do have property marking events, and they take place all over the county. There is community policing members trained in Ballyshannon, Letterkenny, Milford and Buncrana, and I know in the Buncrana district we've held at least 5 events over the summer, and they are advertised on the Garda Facebook page. In relation to this query, I don't know where this person is residing. Maybe perhaps if they want to contact their local Garda station, we could put them in touch with the community policing unit, and maybe we'll inform, or it's not that maybe we will inform them of the upcoming property marking events maybe over the Christmas period. And as I said, look, if it's a small item, if they want to take it into the station, something like a phone or that can be be done at the Garda station. Now, if it's a tractor or a trailer, that may be at an event such as a co-op or something.
Ring
like
your
that.
local Garda station, they'll work with
That's
you.
it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. Okay.
We'll try our best to accommodate people where possible.
Finally, what could be done about a horse animal that keeps breaking out and causing damage to property? It happens weekly, and the owner, says this listener, has done nothing to make it stop.
Okay, well, there's two elements to this. So if the damage in question is being caused on private property, then it is a civil matter, and we'd encourage the listener to seek some legal advice. However, if the animal in question is damaging property in the public place or is endangering road users or pedestrians, then it is a matter for ourselves, and we'd urge them to get in touch with us, and we'll follow that up.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for calling down to us here at the Clannery. I really appreciate it. That was Garda Sergeant Charlene Anderson, and that item will be available for you to watch on our Facebook page and the Garda Síochána Facebook page a little later on as well. But for now, we'll take a break, and we'll be back more from the Defective Concrete Research Conference taking place here at the beautiful Clannery Hotel. That's after these messages.
The Community Garda information slot is brought to you by Sheridan Security Systems, protecting what you value most. Call today and get your zero-wire alarm system from €299. Sheridan Security, 91-26025. The 9 Til Noon Show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Do you need to switch your Ulster Bank loan or overdraft? We are now offering competitive low-rate switcher loans and MyCU current account with overdraft.
Tá gá irid seansig páistí an flua oil agus atáig daoine fásta. Rud a déach a bheith ina chúiscinnis chum cúisig. Tá gach páiste iad a gábhlín agus 7 mlína déag díis in an vaccine flu sróna oil sé ar náisce. Is bailach sa bháilte agus éfachtach atá an soc in iad a cosint, chum maid leis an cuid eile den tailach. Jane cuine le a Doctor Generalta nó le a Futagéir. Tela óla sé ar fáil ag hsc.ie/flu. O aimanacht naar servicios lunche.
If something's free, why would you turn it down? I mean, a free haircut from a 5-year-old. Oh, no. Or a free sample of onion paste. Oh. Well then, how about a free tour of your neighbour's new shed? Oh, sounds, well... Okay, look, they were bad examples. But how about a free eye test and free glasses from the €69 range at Specsavers with your PRSI? Well... that sounds like something to smile about.
Book an appointment or find out more at specsavers.ie.
Give the gift of discovery this Christmas with an overnight escape or a meal they're sure to remember in that place they love or the one they'd love to try. Buy a voucher for one of Ireland's amazing hotels or restaurants today and support Irish businesses while getting a head start on your Christmas shopping. Brought to you by Fáilte Ireland.
If you're tired and struggling to put a spring in your step, discover the power of Revive Active at your local Brennan's Pharmacy. Revive Active is an award-winning super supplement containing 26 active ingredients, including vitamin C, D and zinc, which support your immune system, all in one handy daily sachet. Made for busy, stressful lives, it's the convenient way to put back what life takes out. Enrich your life with Revive Active. In-store or online, click and collect from brennanspharmacy.com. We're here for you.
Don't miss a night of the Country Stars live in concert on Monday the 5th of December in the Mount Errigal Hotel, Letterkenny, featuring Jimmy Buckley, Brendan Shine, Patrick Finney, Olivia Douglas, Declan Nerney and your host and compere David James. Tickets now on sale from hotel reception and online at Eventbrite. That's Monday the 5th of December at the Mount Errigal Hotel.
This December the 23rd, you could own a brand new car worth €30,000. What a wonderful automobile. Island Radio is giving away a brand new Nissan Juke SUV worth €30,000. Someone, and it could be you, will get a call from Greg Hughes on the 9 Til Noon Show on December the 23rd.
You just won a car.
Yes, steady on, that could be you. If you've got the lucky ticket, simply go to highlandradio.com, click on the car link, answer an easy question and buy a ticket for €10, 6 for €50 or 10 for €80. Highland Radio's great car giveaway. Surprise, surprise. Get your ticket now.
Okay, you're very welcome back as we look forward to a Defective Concrete Research Conference taking place here in the Clannery Hotel. Just to remind you that you can still register to attend, and there's the option also to dip in and out on an online basis if you wish. But it is truly an international conference, and there is that international flavour to it. And that's underlined now by our next guest. guests. We're joined by Dr. Andreas Lehmann. We're also in the company of Nick Scaglione and also Dr. Kurt Astley. Good morning, all of you, and thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
I'll start with you, Dr. Andreas Lehmann, and people will know that you're group leader of the Concrete Technology EMPA Swiss Federal Laboratories for Materials Science and Technology Switzerland. And you've really become a big part of our story here now. How did that happen, Andreas?
Well, actually, I was on holiday in the Swiss Alps and I got an email from Paul Dunlop who asked me how do we deal with mica in Switzerland, and he told me about the mica crisis you have here, and I asked him, well, I can't say anything about this. Do you have documents? Please send them. So he sent them to me. I looked at them and I had to say, this sounds fishy to me. Can you please organize me some samples from affected houses? Best from areas that are more strongly deteriorated and weakly deteriorated, so they get an overall image. So he sent these samples and I did a microstructural analysis using electron microscopy and elemental analysis. And then the case was clear for me because I clearly saw pyrrhotite oxidation with sulfur release. And the sulfur that was released reacts with the cement paste, causing expansion in first phase and in second phase strength loss. This is linked to the formation of secondary sulfate minerals.
What is happening in the manufacturing process that makes this a problem?
The problem in the manufacturing process is that the components, which means the aggregates, they contain these iron sulfates, this pyrrhotite. And when you start with such aggregate, you have the danger to cause this pyrrhotite oxidation and internal sulfate attack.
Okay. Now, we heard from Canadian guests a little earlier on. Their problem was foundation-based. We're still having that conversation here. There seems to be a lot of emphasis on outer leaf.
Yes.
You know the layout, the problems that means the inner leaf could still be, will still be made with bad blocks effectively. We know we have these bison floors, very heavy, that people might be using, and they're also sitting on foundations. And many and you were part of the recent conversation in Dublin, many poo-pooing the notion that foundations could be affected. In your professional opinion, as much as we know right now, outer leaf, just repairing an outer leaf, is that going to make a home safe for the future?
This is a big question, and to answer this in depth, we have to look at new research, because you have actually another process, a part of pyrrhotite oxidation and internal sulfate attack, and this is carbonation. Concrete takes up CO2 from the atmosphere, and the cement hydrates get so-called carbonated. Now, if you have carbonation proceeding very fast and sulfate attack relatively slow, like it is in the inner leaf, you have less potential for expansion and cracking. And in the outer leaf, you have favorable conditions for pyrrhotite oxidation, less favorable one for carbonation. That's why the outer leaf is more damaged than the inner leaf. But I would not say that the internal leaf cannot be damaged. I know of a particular case where the outer leaf has been replaced and now the inner leaf starts to crack.
And this is the problem when an engineer is expected to sign off on something. Can they do that? With the knowledge that there are examples whereby the inner leaf has failed? In terms of the foundations here, with the problems that we're dealing with, is how tightly the product is compacted. Is that favourable to the foundations not failing, for example?
Well, if you have a dense concrete, the reaction will proceed surely slower. For example, in Connecticut, the real problem started after 20 years, as I've learned from Nick. And so we have no clue at all what is the case with the Irish foundations. It, of course, is very important that how moisture can access your foundations, because moisture is the engine to promote this internal sulfate attack.
And we've seen houses where there was problem with damp-proof coursing, or there's other external elements that could allow moisture. Is it relevant? Is there a lifespan that we should expect? Because you're talking about after 20 years. I mean, realistically, we can't expect, can we, for us to be indemnified for the quality of our house for eternity? Do you know what I mean? Is there a reasonable lifespan that we could sort of stop complaining after a certain amount of time if it starts to deteriorate, if you understand? It can't be open-ended either. We have to recognise that, I suppose.
Well, it's very difficult to give a specific timeline because you have quality variations in the concrete blocks and you have variations in the composition. So there can't be just a certain timeline. Anyway, if your inner leaf is completely carbonated, the danger of expansion and cracking is reduced. But I have to mention, I mean, this is an important thing. The last time I was here, it was back in March, I think, the boundary condition has changed somewhat because at this time we just looked at 4 houses. But now we had access to a data collection of a TA group of Thomas Campbell, and they have more than 91 houses or 90 houses in their database. And this shows that the majority of the inner leaves exhibit cracks too.
Yeah. Before I bring in our next guest, finally, as a scientist, does it frustrate you when you hear people, especially maybe politicians or decision makers, suppose about a situation, presume that, well, that can't be a problem because I've seen evidence, but you're looking at this from a very scientific level. We have to truly put our egos to one side or our opinions to one side. We have to follow the science here. That includes scientists as well as homeowners, as well as government officials. Yeah, well, I'm actually pretty frustrated how this thing here is running because, I mean, I'm a very rational person and we have had claims that there is swelling of mica due to moisture uptake, there is freeze-thaw problems, there are wetting, drying cycles problems. But these were all claims. I haven't seen any scientific evidence. I'm a scientist. I don't want to exclude anything, but I would like to be convinced by scientific evidence, and it's clear internal sulfate attack in the Donegal homes is a proven fact. Everything else is not. Yeah, and it has to be evidence-based because we're talking billions of euro of taxpayers' money here. Nick Scaglione is Ohio geologist and president of Concrete Research and Testing, CRT. Nick, very welcome to Ireland. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so what has been happening in America?
Well, the problem in there started, I got involved in about 2008. Started with a single quarry in Connecticut, and I first got involved mostly doing work for the insurance industry, and they're showing significant amount of cracking in these residential foundations. This one quarry was delivering concrete for all the residential foundations in the area, and after about 20 years, they started receiving pretty severe cracking distress in these foundations. And doing the petrographic analysis determined it was from the oxidation of the pyrrhotite. Sorry.
It's okay. No, you're doing great. Is that similar to what we're seeing here, Nick? But not in the foundations yet because we haven't really got to that point. But in terms of what's happening, the chemical reactions, is the problem similar? But as I say, at this point, we're seeing it in these concrete blocks that we use.
Yeah, it's a different type of aggregate. The amount of pyrrhotite in the U.S. concrete is higher, but there's definitely pyrrhotite also in this aggregate that's been used here in the blocks. And the analysis that I've seen on looking at the cores that were received from here in Donegal, there's obvious oxidation, in situ oxidation of the pyrrhotite.
Yeah.
So,
have you found it interesting to speak to people on an international level, to come here now, and I'm not sure when you arrived, but to have a conversation? You would have been aware, presumably, that this was not going to be unique to the area that you've been focused on, but has it been interesting to see the extent of this? And obviously we've seen what's going on in Canada, we've seen what's going on here, and it could be happening, and it is happening in many other places. From a scientific point of view, has that been interesting for you? Has it been educational?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first time that came up in Connecticut in the U.S., that was the first time that, in the U.S. became really aware of this problem. And then, of course, we found out about the Canadians going through the same thing, and got in touch with, basically from Debbie McCoy, the homeowner advocate. She was in touch with Paul, and she put me in touch with Paul Dunlop. And yeah, it's just interesting to see the problem, a similar problem out here.
Yeah, are you at a point in America yet? And I don't know if it's you're dealing with foundations in Ohio specifically, so maybe just use that state. No, okay, more broadly.
Yeah, I mean, this problem, like I said, in the U.S. is even though my company's in Ohio, it was from a single quarry in Connecticut that was delivering concrete to all the
So is
foundations.
that Connecticut quarry still active?
It is shut down for use for aggregate for concrete, but we've recently determined that there's another quarry in Massachusetts now. So that's just more, this, like I said, in Connecticut, first came aware in about 2008. It's just been the last couple of years, we've now determined there's a quarry in central Connecticut that is also causing problems.
What about oversight and regulation then, inspection of these quarries? Presumably that wasn't happening, at least to the right criteria. Right. Has things changed to give you confidence that the problems like this will be caught, that this is not going to be a perpetual problem that homeowners in America will have to deal with?
Yeah, the problem is there are ASTM standards to be able to test the aggregate to see if it's a good quality aggregate for use in concrete. Although those standards are put into specifications for project specifications. So for, say, DOT, Department of Transportation work, or large commercial projects, they'll have to follow the specifications and use aggregate that meets these ASTM specifications. But a lot of times for residential type projects, there's no specification saying that the aggregate needs to meet these standards. So then it's able to be used for these types of residential projects. And but Connecticut, since this problem has happened, they have now passed their own quarry standards. So all the quarries in Connecticut have to get tested now for sulfur content and do a geological survey. And if they see there's a problem, they have to do a further petrographic analysis of that aggregate. So going forward, that should be, hopefully take care of that problem in Connecticut. Massachusetts is now trying to get quarry standards of their own passed, to similar that's being done in Connecticut.
It's really fascinating because, for those with a more intimate knowledge of this, they'll see it differently. But for us as a layperson, this started off as an Inishowen problem, a little part of North Donegal, and then it became apparent that it was much of Donegal. Now 13 counties in this country. Now we're speaking to the likes of yourselves and hearing of the experience in America and Canada and some of the Nordic countries as well. Dr. Kurt Astley is head of mineral production and HSE Research Group, Department of Geoscience and Petroleum, Norwegian University of Science and Technology, Norway. Again, excellent credentials, I must say. What is happening in Norway, Kurt? And thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Sorry. In Norway, we don't have this issue with the domestic houses that has this deleterious reactions to pyrrhotite. But we came into this when there was a tunnel being driven in the south of the country, 20 kilometer to line tunnel. They plan to use this material from the tunnel excavation for creating the concrete liners for the tunnel. But following the Norwegian standards for testing for pyrrhotite, they discovered that there was some pyrrhotite in the rock mass. So they had to discard or dispose of a lot of all this rock mass from the tunnel, and rather buy new fresh aggregates from a local supplier. That was a huge expense for the project. I think it's said to be around 30 million euros, approximately. They don't really know.
That's nothing.
No, it's nothing in this
compared to what we're talking about. But I understand. Yeah. So when was that picked up? Because that's really quite interesting. So the science was trusted and costly decisions were made. The right decisions then.
Yeah,
is that the example?
If you look at what happens in Quebec, here in Ireland, and in the US, it's probably the right decision. Our approach is that we came in have a look at the regulations, the standards, and see what are the real thresholds for pyrrhotite and sulfur content. Is it higher? Is it lower? Are they correct, the standards as today? And also to look into the analytical methods that are used to make sure that they can be trusted, and sampling procedures, etc. So it's a bit different from what my colleagues here has discovered. But in this process, we have also been starting this cooperation with the University in Quebec, Laval, and also these guys now with this conference.
Andreas, it really is an international problem that probably requires an international response, which is happening on a certain level, maybe not at the level it needs to have, because you guys are coming together and working on this. I'm not so sure. It depends on which country, what level of support and engagement the government has here. I don't know. They're doing their own thing, seemingly. But this is major, and we have to make sure that this doesn't become more of a problem in the countries we've talked of, but elsewhere. We need an international approach to this, don't we, on a very, very organized, high-level way.
Yes, this is surely mandatory, because, every country has its specific boundary conditions, and the problems to be solved, they are specific as well. However, if we connect on an international level, we can learn from each other and come up with much better solution if we compared to when we just work on our own. I mean, this is the scientific process. It's dynamic. You learn and you give.
How far away do you think we are then, with the right intentions, from a scientific consensus that we can move forward with, that we can sort of start working on and implementing on at various levels within each country?
Yeah. Well, first, especially for the situation in Ireland, we have to increase our knowledge on the situation. When we have done that, we can take the appropriate measures, for example, in the IS 465, if you have a new edition, and this triggers then an entire process. We bring in test methods that have been proven in other countries, and like that we can benefit from each other. But the situation in Ireland is such that we really lack knowledge. Now we did the first steps in direction of analysis of the outer and inner leaf, but we're just at the beginning. We have no clue about the foundations. And just imagine, you rebuild a house, and 10 years later you have uplift due to an expanding foundation.
It would make no sense to do that until such time as you had been assured as best you can through the science that that is advisable or otherwise.
Exactly.
Nick, are you surprised that we are sort of, I don't know how to frame this, I don't want to take away from it because it's hugely important, but are you surprised that we are having to have this conversation here in Ireland today being driven by community and sort of academia, and that this is not a government-sponsored process? Does that make, do you understand where I'm coming from?
It doesn't surprise me, because I think we saw a similar thing in the U.S. I mean, a lot of the what happened in the U.S. with getting this problem figured out was homeowner-driven and advocate-driven, and actually a reporter, a news reporter, was really on the case and went out of his way to really figure out what was going on and report it in the news and get it out in front of it. So no, it's kind of a it was like that in the U.S. also, and these foundations, like I said, they just have very severe cracking. They're actually replacing these foundations at a cost of
who's funding that, Nick?
That's a good question. Initially, some people were paying for it themselves. Eventually, they were able to get the government, the Connecticut government, along with I think some insurance companies. They kicked in a big fund, and so now they're having those foundations paid for. Through
at
this
no
fund.
cost to the homeowner.
At no cost to the homeowner. And they were also paying for the testing. So the homeowners can get the concrete tested, sent to a laboratory to get their concrete tested, and that's paid for. Then if they do have to get the foundation replaced, like I said, it's about $250,000 to $250,000 to get it replaced. And yeah.
All right, fascinating insight, because that's certainly not the way it is here. All three of you, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it, and we really look forward to listening to what you have to say here. We're only scratching the surface here. I'm bluffing it here, but there'll be a full, proper conversation which will be happening on the stage to our left, which you can still come and attend here at the Clanry, and also you can watch online. But for now, Dr. Andreas Lehmann, it's been lovely to meet you in person. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme this morning, and thank you for all you're doing. It's greatly appreciated. We also have Nick Scaglione. Thank you so much, Nick, for speaking to us. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Kurt Asley. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, it is the 9 Till Noon Show. We're broadcasting specially here from the Clanry Hotel, where this conference will take place. We are actually in the... We are actually alongside where we're in the room the conference will be held in. It's going to be fascinating, and we'll be back with more on this programme after these messages. Stay where you are.
The 9 Till Noon Show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
New this week at Home Store and More. All Christmas tree lights are half price. That's right, half price. Save €40 on 1,000 LED cluster lights, or save an amazing $64.50 on 2,000 LED cluster lights. Let our half-price Christmas tree lights add a Christmas twinkle to your home. But better hurry, because when all our half-price Christmas tree lights are gone, they're gone. Drop by your local Home Store and More, or visit us online at homestoreandmore.ie. Home Store and More. A happy home.
Businesses, order your gift vouchers for Christmas now from BizPrint the printers. Also personalised calendars, Christmas cards, diaries, draw tickets and much more at great prices from BizPrint, Port Road, Letterkenny. See bizprint.ie.
All ready for next year? We are, with our award-winning Seat SUVs, the bold crossover Arona, the family favourite Ateca, and the spacious 7-seater Tarraco. All ready with great PCP finance offers and a service plan for just $9.99 a month. Available to order at DMG Motors, Claw Road, Donegal Town. Book a test drive today. Visit seat.ie to find your 231 SUV. Finance provided by Volkswagen Financial Services Ireland, trading as Seat Financial Services. Subject to lending criteria. Terms and conditions apply. Volkswagen Financial Services Ireland Limited, trading as Seat Financial Services, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
It's flu season, and children are twice as likely as adults to catch the flu, which can sometimes cause serious illness. That's why all children aged 2 to 17 can get their free nasal spray flu vaccine, a safe and effective way to protect them, and the rest of your family too. So make an appointment with your GP or pharmacist. Visit hsc.ie/flu for more information. From the HSC.
GiveBlood.ie know we can count on you, our community of blood donors, to give blood and to choose to be there for others in their hour of need. Blood donors from Letterkenny and Bunbeg should attend the clinic in the Radisson Blu Hotel in Letterkenny from Monday 14th to Thursday 17th of November. Making an appointment is recommended, so call 1-800-731-137 to book your time. New donors are welcome. Visit GiveBlood.ie to check eligibility and clinic details, because we count on you.
Letterkenny Shopping Centre is where real Christmas begins. Get everything you need for the festive season with a wide range of gifts, food and services. Park for free, have a browse, grab a coffee and actually enjoy your Christmas shopping this year. Thank you for visiting Letterkenny Shopping Centre this Christmas.
For the biggest names in perfumes and aftershaves, visit McGee's Chemist Letterkenny. Dior, Armani and Hugo Boss, Victor and Rolf, Marc Jacobs and Lancôme. Also Gucci, Yves Saint Laurent, Prada and many more. From timeless classics to celebrity favourites, there's a perfume or aftershave for everyone at McGee's Chemist Letterkenny and online at mcgees.ie.
Are you tired of waiting for treatment or surgery? Did you know you can receive immediate treatment across the border under the new NI planned healthcare scheme at potentially no cost? Donegal patients are still being treated with us at Kingsbridge Private Hospital Northwest post-Brexit. The process is easy and our dedicated team will help guide you through it. So why wait? Contact us today to find out how you can skip the waiting lists and receive treatment in Northern Ireland. Visit kingsbridgeprivatehospital.com, because life matters.
Connolly's Audi Sligo are returning with their Future Now test drive event, taking place this Saturday 19th and Sunday 20th November at Letterkenny Golf Club. Call in from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. We will be showcasing our fantastic range of cars for the entire weekend. To avoid disappointment, order your new 231 Audi today with Connolly's Audi Sligo. Visit connolly's.ie to see our full range.
This Black Friday weekend, everyone's on the lookout for a bargain, but you should be on the lookout for fraud. Bank of Ireland are on the lookout for your financial well-being by reminding you to stop, think, check. Stop. Don't just click any old link. Think. Bank of Ireland will never send you texts or emails asking for your full 365 PIN or one-time passcode. And check using their exclusive text checker by sending the word check followed by the Bank of Ireland message to 50365. For more info, search Bank of Ireland Security. And together, we won't let the fraudsters win.
Bank of Ireland. Begin. Bank of Ireland is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Crawford Tiles and More, Castlefin. Black Friday 6-day sale starts Monday the 21st at 9:30. 20% off tiles, 15% off bathware, 5% off wooden carpet. Fitters and delivery service available. That's 6 days of Black Friday savings. Starts Monday the 21st at Crawford Tiles. Call 9143942.
The county's #1 talk show, the 9 Til Noon Show on Highland Radio.
Okay, good morning to you once again. It is 11 o'clock. It's time for a news update, and we say good morning once again to Michaela Clark.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning. Gardaí have reissued an appeal for information following a fatal crash in Letterkenny last week. Shortly before midnight on Wednesday last, two cars collided on the Ramelton Road. A female who was a front seat passenger was pronounced dead at the scene. Two men were taken to Letterkenny University Hospital for serious injuries sustained. Meanwhile, investigations are continuing into a two-vehicle crash in Fawn on Thursday night last. 5 people were hospitalised, one of whom sustained serious injuries in the crash at around 9:10 p.m. Anyone who has any information, including dashcam footage, is being asked to contact Buncrana Garda Station. Professor Paul Dunlop believes the defective concrete block issue was an avoidable disaster. A 3-day research event to examine mica and other deleterious materials in concrete blocks will get underway today with a conference in Letterkenny. Speaking ahead of the conference, Professor Dunlop says if guidelines and regulations were followed, homeowners wouldn't be in this situation. Searchers are continuing in the Twin Towns for a missing woman. Gardaí are conducting the search with assistance from Foyle Search and Rescue. A special meeting is to be held next week to investigate claims fraud beggars are being bussed into Letterkenny. The Cahirlock of the Letterkenny Milford Municipal District last week raised serious concerns over reports that those purporting to be beggars are intimidating people. The workshop next week will involve Donegal County Council, Gardaí, St Vincent de Paul, social welfare representatives and the Simon community. Money has been stolen from St Bathan's Church in St Johnston. Sometime between 11 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. on Friday last, the door of the sacristy was forced open. Anyone who may have observed any suspicious vehicles or people in or around the church on Friday are being asked to contact Gardaí in Letterkenny. Meanwhile, a quantity of gold jewellery has been stolen during a break-in in Carrigan's. It's believed entry was gained through an unlocked door to a house on Main Street on Friday last between 7 and 9 p.m. And the Foreign Affairs Minister says accommodating Ukrainian refugees is putting Ireland under a lot of strain. Latest CSO figures show more than 62,000 Ukrainians have fled to Ireland since the start of the Russian invasion. 4,441 Ukrainian refugees are currently being housed in Donegal. Those are the latest headlines. We'll be back with an update again at 12 noon.
Okay, Michaela, thank you very much indeed. And we'll be back with more guests live from the Clanry here in Letterkenny ahead of the Defective Concrete Research Conference taking place or beginning today. That's coming up after this break. Stay where you are.
It's a magical Christmas experience. St. Colum's Park, Magic Kingdom, featuring a spectacle of light, vintage funfair, Christmas characters, delicious food and drink, the chance to win prizes and shop for gifts. Thursday 1st to Thursday 22nd December. St. Colum's Park, Jerry, Londonderry. Don't miss out. Book now online or via Facebook.
Listen up, pet lovers. Feed your pets for less at Pet Value Buncrana. Get Whiskas 80-pack pouches for only €30. Royal Canin Puppy Range, now 20% off. 15 kg bags of dog food starting at €16.50. Get more value at Pet Value. St Mary's Road, Buncrana. Open 7 days a week. Find us on Facebook.
Massive Black Friday sale starts Saturday 19th of November at Patterson's The Hall, Lifford. Huge savings on kitchens, beds, sofas, dining sets and giftware. Hundreds of products in stock and ready for delivery or collection. Christmas gifts and decorations now on display. Open Monday to Saturday 9 till 5:30. Get yourself down to Patterson's massive Black Friday sale.
With the ongoing war in Ukraine affecting the cost of energy, many of us are facing a challenging winter. Through Budget 23, Government is introducing a range of supports to lessen the financial impact on families, households and businesses, and will continue to monitor the situation in the coming months to protect those in difficulty. It's important that everyone stays warm and well, but where safe and possible to do so, reducing energy use can also reduce bills. Changes like turning your thermostat down by 1 degree and considering how often you use energy-intensive appliances like tumble dryers can make a big difference. For information on available supports and energy-saving advice, visit gov.ie/reduce your use. Brought to you by the Government of Ireland.
Have you got a one-for-all gift card that you've yet to spend? Now is the perfect time. Go and treat yourself in any of the 12,000 one-for-all retail partners before December 31st, and you could win €10,000 in cash. Pennies, Argos, IKEA, Currys, TK Maxx and many more. Simply spend your gift card and visit oneforall.ie/win for your chance to win. Terms and conditions apply. The One for All gift card is issued by GVS Prepaid Europe Limited. GVS Prepaid Europe Limited is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
Okay, you're very welcome back to the Clanry. Now our next guests, our next panel, I suppose you could say, are Damien Owens, a registrar with Engineers Ireland. Damien, lovely to see you. Thank you so much for calling in to us.
Thank you, Hugh.
And we're also in the company of Anne Owens, former CEO of the Micah Action Group, campaigner and homeowner advocate. Anne, good morning to you. Great to have you with us. And last but certainly not least is Debbie McCoy, lead advocate in Connecticut, a state that has been dealing with these issues before. Debbie, good morning to you.
Good morning. Nice to meet you.
It's great to meet you too. You listen to the program, don't you?
Yes, I do.
In Connecticut?
Yes, they have it. They put it on 100%. So I listen to you on that.
Oh, lovely. Brilliant. Okay. That means you don't have to listen to me live. You can listen to the best bits. Come here, Debbie. What is the situation of homeowners in Connecticut? What's your situation? It's probably best to speak about
I got involved 7 years ago. My son's condo was told they had a few units affected. It turned out 124 units were affected. However, they excluded condos from the remediation scheme. So Mama Bear got poked, and I came out fighting. And I fought for 2 years to get them on the scheme. In the meantime, all the homeowners were in line, and by the time they got to the condos, they ran out of money. So they infused another $100 million, and that took care of the 500 units that were affected in 5 different complexes. So they fixed my son's condo, and I took a deep sigh of relief, and then we found out my daughter's home has it. On the day we brought her twin baby girls home from the NICU after 75 days, it was supposed to be a joyous day, and
Debbie,
instead I fell to the ground crying.
Of course you did. Here we go again.
Yeah.
And Debbie, was that bad luck, or is there a problem with defective products so broad that it's not surprising?
To our area, Vernon, the town of Vernon that I'm from, it's the hardest hit town. So we have over 400 homes that are affected, 3 condo complexes, 2 apartment buildings, public buildings. There's 2 schools that are affected, police station, fire stations, a grocery store in Tolland. So there's a lot of affected homes.
And what is failing? Is it foundations?
The foundations are failing. But it doesn't just affect the foundations. Like in my son's condo, none of the doors upstairs closed, no closet doors. The cracking was going up the walls. My daughter's home, the chimney is separating from the home. She brought home 2 little they were born 1 pound 1 pound 9 ounces each, and their lungs weren't fully developed. And when we brought them home after having the basement door open, that's all you can smell now is the mold, the dark black mold that is all over the walls. It's really bad. So I formed a women's working group. We became the legislative arm, and it's called the Concrete Queens. So, and I also
only in
formed a
America.
condo
Only in
group.
America.
Yes, I'm known as Debbie McCoy, the Concrete Queen.
And why not? But maybe we need to. We've learned an awful lot from your campaign, and maybe we should start with things like that. So, in terms of, I'm sorry to timescale hop here, but who's funding the remediation? Who paid to repair your?
Okay, so we have 3 funding mechanisms. The first was bonded for 5 years, $20 million a year. And because they started late, we got 320 increments, 320 million. So we were able to get a lot of homes done. Then, like I said, they ran out of funds, so they had to fund these condos, and there was 5 complexes. So they did a $12, $1 a month surcharge on our insurance policies for 10 years. So it raises $10 million a year for 10 years. So that's another $100 million. And that took care of the condos. Then when my daughter went to apply, they closed the doors. They ran out of money. They said, we're not fixing any more homes. And I said, oh no, you fix one, you have to fix them all. So we raised another $100 million bonded funds. We're doing it over a 4-year span. And next year, my daughter's home will be able to be fixed.
Brilliant. And how many
applicants
homes are being? Yeah, exactly. How
so
many
we
applicants?
have about 2,100 applicants so far, and that's because the news still, even though it's so prevalent in Connecticut.
But the number of applicants versus the cost seems to be way off what we're talking about here.
The cost is anywhere between 150 million to 250.
But we're talking billions here.
150,000 to 250,000 per foundation. Can you imagine? That's just the foundation. That's not an entire home like here in
I understand.
Ireland.
I get you. So they're able to repair the foundations without touching the rest of the
They have to lift the house 7 feet in the air, remove the old defective concrete, and replace it. And the insurance companies don't cover it.
In a way,
no insurance for it at all.
I mean, it's terrible and it's relatable, and it connects us here with Connecticut. But Damien Owens, with Engineers Ireland, our problems, it's very complex in comparison.
It is, and it's been going on a while. I've been heartened to hear this morning from Professor Dunlop and Andreas Lehman about the research that's underway, and I think many of our members push for this. We operate on a voluntary basis the IS 465 register of engineers who undertake assessments of these affected properties, and our members have pushed for a greater understanding of what the causation of the defective materials is, because until we fully understand how the mechanism of deterioration, it's very hard to actually provide a good remedy.
But also you have to stand over that good remedy, and presumably, and I would imagine if I were engineer, where we're at now in terms of our knowledge and the conversation over inner leaves, foundations and what have you, I would be very reluctant to sign off on an outer leaf repair, because I couldn't, in all honesty, say I know that's a good thing to do.
And this is what our members have said, and it came out when we commenced Operation Register, and it went live in, I think, June 2020. It became very apparent from our members who are engaged by the homeowner and they want to do the best for their client, and then they see a number of options, and they're constrained in some of the options. Perhaps they can apply either on a cost basis, either what's available as a grant or what the homeowner can afford. And then other members had noticed similar problems arising in other geographic areas such as Clare and Limerick, so that feedback from our members was brought forward so that other areas could be considered. So it's not just a Donegal problem or a Mayo problem, it seems to be more pervasive.
But how do we progress forward? Because it's going to take some time to get all the information we might need, right? And we're never going to get any I don't think we'll ever get any absolute guarantees. So between us doing nothing and only full demolitions, right? How do we find, I don't even want to say the word landing zone, but you know what I'm on about. How do we find the sweet spot then to move this forward, doing the right thing to the satisfaction of homeowners, to the satisfaction of the fund towards it, and also engineers?
I think, well, when the scheme the scheme came out first, I think based on the feedback from engineers and others, it was modified. So there's now a second version of the scheme coming in, and I think that's one aspect, is that we've got to continue to be willing to modify the scheme as we learn more and more. I know,
but my point is, sorry, Damien, unless I was given the final analysis of the potential for foundations to go, I'm not going to enter this scheme, go through all the rigmarole of an outer leaf, and then, the whole idea would be that maybe I could breathe at night, that I know a problem has been fixed. But until such time as we know what the situation is with inner leaves and foundations, I would probably say, well, can I stick it out here? And then that means the scheme then's not moving forward. That's the point I'm trying to make here.
And it's going to take time to get to that point. I think ultimately where we want to go with the research is that you can have a graph that will show you, based on the research that's taking place, you have a graph that can show you where your property is on that scale of deterioration, which may give you, okay, we need to fix it now, or it'll be a couple of years.
Yeah, but my insurance company saying to me, well, I'm not going to insure your house if you only do the outer leaf. So then I look at your scale and I go, seriously, am I going to believe that scale, or am I going to go with the insurance company here? So I'll stay out of this scheme until such time as there's something more definitive, and that I think that's the biggest impediment to this thing moving forward.
And that's a timing issue, because until you get the research, and don't forget, there's several hundred reports out there already that our members have undertaken for their clients, and there is a pool of information that really should be mined, pardon the pun, for information. There's properties that have been demolished that are a living post-mortem, where we can take samples and see what the mechanism of deterioration is throughout the properties.
Yeah, but there's people who want this to start working now. Debbie?
In the enhanced scheme, they have...
This is our enhanced scheme or yours?
Yeah, in the enhanced scheme in Ireland,
yeah.
They have the second grant. John O'Connor was in charge of the second grant. That's for options 2 through 5. So say, and not for option 1, but you only demolish the home to the foundation. Say the foundation comes out that it needs to be replaced. There's no second grant under option 1. So where does that leave all these homeowners that could end up having it should be all 1 through 5 should be allowed in on that second grant, because it leaves all these people in limbo, and they don't want to take a step forward.
Exactly my point.
If they think that their foundations are deteriorating. So that should be included in the 1 through 5 should be included under the second grant.
What worries me is the motivation for that not being the case. You see, what would be the motivation for that not being the case? If you are satisfied that, and we've heard government reps say foundations are going to be fine, if you believe that, well, put your money where your mouth is. Right. Allow re-entry to the scheme across all 5.
Yes.
For foundations.
Exactly.
But then you say, well, no. Well, why not? Anne Owens has been sitting patiently there, Anne. Yes. It's really quite interesting. This has been linked around the world, different parts of America, to Norway, to Sweden, to here, and that's what we know of, and there's more out there, The scale of this, it's remarkable. And the scale of this conference, I think, actually can't be underestimated either.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm involved in this campaign for the last 11 years. I'm very proud to say that this campaign started off at my kitchen table, and we brought it from the kitchen table to the cabinet table, and we've now brought it to an international level. And I mean, this is a beacon call for every country in the world to really learn about the geology of their rocks and to understand geology and the purpose of the different geology, what it's suitable for, because if they don't do that, this will continue to happen. And as we now know, it's happened in Norway, it's happened in the UK, it's happened in America, it's happened already in Ireland with pyrite, it's now happening with mica, now we're learning about pyrrhotite. So, I mean, this is a real opportunity for the whole world to listen to the science and what is happening, and that's the only way we can make sure that this doesn't continue to happen again and again.
I hear you, right? But, sometimes we be preaching to the converted. I mean, are all of Donegal's 5 elected representatives and the council? Are they all going to be taking up the first 2 rows, every single one of them? 38 odd councillors, 5 TDs. Is Minister O'Brien going to be sitting there? Is the opposition housing minister going to be sitting there? Anyone who claims to represent people in houses elected, are they going to be here? Do you know what I mean? This is fantastic, us coming to some sort of a consensus, right? But it can't be done in the vacuum that doesn't contain the people that make the decisions, that pull the purse strings.
Greg, you are absolutely right. Those people that you talk about should have been the very, very first people to put their name to join this conference, because at the end of the day, everybody, the taxpayer needs accountability, the homeowner needs justice, and the very people you talk about who really caused damage by having light touch regulation, no regulation, they are responsible.
The kind of accountability that we need to see in politics now, right, is that any of our elected representatives, councils and TDs, right, unless there's something seriously going on in their lives that aren't here, going forward, if they're not here, should remove themselves from any further conversation on defective blocks. If they could be here and they're not here.
Well,
because
Greg,
how could you have any input into this going forward if you don't come to an event like this?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a real comprehensive event. So if we have people from all over the world, the best brains in the world on deleterious materials, and we have them here today, and those people that you talk about aren't here, then everybody should be asking questions. And where do you get accountability if the people responsible are not here today?
It starts at the ballot box. Damien, from your perspective, how do you see the next few months unfolding? We're having a review of the IS 465s, isn't that correct? We're going to see what that includes, what that doesn't include. We're hoping that this new enhanced scheme, as it's been labelled, will begin to be opened sometime next year. How do you think, and it's an opinion because none of us have the facts, how do you think this progresses then in the next 2 years?
I think we shall see. The scheme to date, there's only 40 engineers working on the scheme, 30 to 40 engineers, and really those numbers need to increase so that more properties can be assessed.
What brings them in?
The phase one, I suppose the assessment, it needs to be open. It'll be open to more than just engineers to do the initial assessments. One of the problems at the moment...
This initial assessment, just I'm sorry to come across, David, I want everyone to understand, which means me as well. This is the sort of initial assessment which they form an opinion which would allow people then to get the boring and what have you done out of their grant effectively if they're finally accepted onto the scheme.
Correct. So the initial assessment to get into the scheme, to get the property tested, and one of the issues at the moment is testing capacity, because a lot of the testing samples have to go to the UK. And that's proven quite a delay.
And is it scientifically beyond us to establish such a testing centre in Ireland?
Some of the tests could be done here, and again, it gets back to some of the research that's been done. You know, we if we have a proper set of data, we can do an initial assessment and know straight away where we fit.
Yeah, we've an awful habit of outsourcing testing in this country for some reason, be it in health or matters like this. I don't know what we're afraid of. We've got some amazing minds here. A lot of them will be in this room. Debbie?
Yes.
What else have you got to add? While I have you sitting there, you're jumping up, you're waving, you're back and forwards. The concrete queen, we can't keep her in one place,
no,
Debbie.
You can't.
What do you want to add before we move on, Debbie?
Well, a lot of the homeowners sent their reports to me, okay? And there's 8 most reactive minerals, sulfide minerals, and I see 4 of the 8 in their reports. And there's actually some that don't even have mica, they just have peritite, and they can't get into the scheme under the assessment. Now, you took the scheme and you amended it by allowing other counties, but they say, oh no, we can't amend it to have peritite, the most reactive mineral on the planet. We can't amend it to add one deleterious mineral to allow all these homes in County Donegal to be able to access the enhanced
So is that trying
scheme.
to keep a lid on it then? To try and keep a cap on it? What's the motivation? Why not do it right? Why not do the right thing?
It's perplexing to me. It really is.
But the
and
only
that's what's got
motivation
me
can
here
be,
to Ireland.
yeah, the only motivation can be that we can be seen to be doing something, but if we go the whole hog, what's the consequences? How do we even do it? I wonder. I want to have. You're all right. You're here till 11:30 at least, anyway, aren't you? Just for this piece, because I do have to take an ad break. But what I want to start to talk about in here, maybe make a comparison between the awful situation, Debbie, as you've outlined. The first wave was your son, and the second wave was your daughter, and everything that went along with that. I want to know how you're dealing with supporting people through this, and whether there's state involvement in that, and also want to hear from Anne as well. Just we talk again about the real impact of this. People listening to this in houses that are in a terrible state, absolutely unlivable. So what we'll do is we'll take a short break, and we'll be back with this panel. We've more guests to introduce to you before 12. Stay right where you are.
The 9 Til Noon Show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Do you need to switch your Ulster Bank loan or overdraft? We are now offering competitive low-rate switcher loans and MyCU current account with overdraft.
At Irish Life Health, our benefit plan helps you embrace a healthier lifestyle. Get up to €250 back on a mix of benefits like fitness wearables, dietitians and sports clubs like your local GAA club. It's health insurance, but not as you know it. Search Irish Life Health.
Irish Life Health Act is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Terms and conditions apply. Call us to see exactly what's covered.
If you're a business owner wondering what to get your staff for Christmas, Kelly Centra and Letterkenny have great hampers to suit all budgets. Luxury hampers are a speciality, with delivery available. Also vouchers for Kelly's award-winning diner or Circle K fuel at the forecourt. Get Christmas sorted for your staff now at Kelly Centra, Mountain Top, Letterkenny. Call 91222026.
Sam is an expert at splitting a bill. If you didn't order a starter, you're not paying for a starter. But he's not an expert when it comes to electric cars. Should he go for mild hybrid, full hybrid? Is he ready for fully electric? All he really knows is that he wants a plug-in one. Luckily, Nissan have been giving people help and advice on electrified vehicles since we introduced the all-electric Leaf back in 2010. So, wherever you are on your journey to electric, head to your local Nissan dealer to see which electrified vehicle suits you, plug-in or otherwise. Nissan, innovation that excites.
Take the stress out of Christmas with McElhenney's Layaway Club. We're delighted to offer our customers a fantastic opportunity to spread the cost of Christmas purchases. Have your special someone receive a Christmas gift to remember this festive season. Only at McElhenney's Ballybuffet.
Charlie McClafferty Funeral Directors, serving Letterkenny and the surrounding areas for over 100 years. Charlie McClafferty Funeral Directors. Let our family take care of your family and guide you through a difficult time.
Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why. The Euro Millions jackpot is an estimated €40 million. Play responsibly in-store, in-app or at lottery.ie. The National Lottery. It could be you.
Hello, Farmer Tinny here. Tinny's Toys are now open 7 days a week. New stock arriving weekly. Our Christmas Club is now open. Check out our entire range online at tinnystoys.com, where we offer free shipping on orders over €75. Buy now, pay later with Klarna. No extra charges. Tinny's Toys, Ireland's largest farm toy superstore. Down by.
Okay, you're very welcome back to the 9 Til Noon Show live here from the Clanry Hotel in Letterkenny. We're still in the company here of Debbie McCoy, lead advocate in Connecticut. Debbie, we've talked about the remedial aspect of it, the blocks and mortar, so to speak. In terms of the recognition of the distress this has put people through, and you've outlined it personally, how has that been dealt with? How has that been recognised in Connecticut?
We appointed a homeowner advocate. However, she hasn't been advocating. So 2 years ago, I had to quit my job. Now, I've been doing this volunteer for 7 years. 5 of it was all research. In the last 2 years, I quit my job, and there's over 2,100 applicants. And I know this because I've helped every one of those applicants through the process, filling out the application, uploading the 5 points of evidence. And, you know, I want to hit on that. We have one centralized funding. It's called the Captive Insurance, CIFSIC. We have 48 towns that are impacted. I can't even imagine sending money to 48 different towns, and you know, because we waive permit fees and we wanted it to be uniform across all 48 towns. Well, they have their own charters, so it's not uniform. So I can't even imagine doing 48 towns like they want to do county by county. It should be one captive insurance or just one unity. And we funnel every year a certain amount. So we have the surcharge 10 million, we have the 25 million, so that's 35 million. And the captive has you give 5 points of evidence, your name, address, phone number. You have to show proof of paid taxes and proof that you own the home. That's it. And then you supply an engineer's report, and they have to classify a severity class code. 3 is the worst of the worst. 2 is it's 50% of your wall. And then class code 1 is you've tested positive to peritite, but there's no signs even after 20 years. They're in a line, what I call the line to nowhere, but they can't sell their homes because it's been tested positive.
It's a zero
to peritite.
asset, really, isn't it?
It's a zero asset. So the captive, you know, it's not bottlenecked.
So, I mean, so when you look at, and you're well across the situation here, and I'm going to get Anna and Damien back in on this as well, of course, but when you look at how people are being treated here, I think your expression says it all. You know, like as bad as it is, I think you can multiply it by many factors here. It's bad.
I think the way the homeowners are treated is almost worse than having the affected home itself, because this go stop, it's like Groundhog Day.
Not to mention,
every single morning you wake up, it's the same day.
The homeowners are in a PR battle with the government for the general public's mind. That's how crazy it is here. And I can produce evidence of that because things were said for a specific person and a purpose, and they got the reaction that was intended. So I mean, like, as I say, Anne, we've an awful lot in common with Debbie and Connecticut, but my word, there is a divergence when it comes to recognizing people as victims of this, as people who are innocent, that they've done nothing wrong, and yet they're guilted, they're made feel bad, hurdles are put in front of them. They're made to feel bad for even daring to not want to spend their own money fixing a house that's falling down because it's not their fault. I mean, where does it, you know what I mean? What we're doing to people here is terrible.
Yeah, my presentation today is called Victims of Failure. And boy, does that give me some vista. I actually didn't know where to begin and where to end. So, you know, I thought, because every word had to mean something in this wee presentation of mine today. And I just think we can't forget that this is not a 100% scheme. I mean, we have to keep saying that we fought for 11 years for a scheme that was 100%. It's not 100%. And as resources are more limited in the cost of living crisis, exponential rise in the cost of everything, more and more people, especially vulnerable people, are going to fall by the wayside. You know, people with, for example, elderly people who are not going to be able to negotiate the scheme, who aren't going to be able to raise collateral, people with mental health difficulties, physical health problems, people on marginal incomes, ordinary people who work. Many of them are just not going to be able to raise the money. Why? Because they're living in a rotten house and they're paying a mortgage, and then they're expected to go and pay rent. So they are just not going to be able to raise the 10, 20 or 30%, and that balance is rising every day. So just make no mistake about it, lots and lots of people, and the most vulnerable people, most vulnerable homeowners, are going to fall by the wayside. And I think that is the saddest thing.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not justice.
But even in terms of who's paying for what has been committed to, like, there seems to be in a lot of the conversations I've had so far today, there seems to be in other places some level of accountability. Someone's here. No one's to blame. We're restoring banks' assets completely to 100%. It's another bailout of the banks. That seems to be acceptable. The insurance companies seem to be able to say, it's nothing to do with us. Oh, by the way, though, if you do the outer leaf, we're also not going to insure your home. Any bonds that were there, what were they ever there for? Well, what about the failure in terms of oversight? What about people that signed off on stuff? You know, I mean...
You're right, Greg, and I don't think you can talk about justice unless unless somebody answers all those questions. And that must come from the very top. As you know, not one quarry has been censured, not one block layer has been censured, and the only people suffering in this is the taxpayer who's forking out a blank cheque.
And Damien, we are still in a situation whereby we can't say with absolute certainty that concrete products are being produced guaranteed to a certain standard now.
Well, there is a standard laid down, so...
well, who's enforcing that?
Well, it should be the local authorities. That would,
are they?
I presume they are. I don't know. I can't say if they are. They aren't. But I think that the revised scheme, just to pick up something that Debbie had mentioned there, the revised scheme, I think that's proposed, at least the second remediation, or this option of a second remediation, will follow with the home. So it will allow the homeowner, if they wish to sell the property, it will have that option of a second remediation will go with the property.
Yes,
so it gives a level of
but
assurance.
if there's two houses, one beside each other, and one has this caveat and the other doesn't, I mean, obviously that's going to severely impact the value of that asset.
But it gives some level of reassurance as much as it can at this stage.
I don't know. Hopefully.
Yeah.
You say about and you're not to stand over this, all right, but I was interviewing a member of the Construction Federation of Ireland recently, a man from Leitrim, I believe it is, can't remember his name at the moment, and I asked him if he were building his own private property, would he source materials from Donegal to do so? And he said no. Now, you know, that's the level of, within the industry, that's the level of confidence we have in what we're producing at the moment to build. Debbie, what are you holding up there, Debbie? Tell me what you're holding up. I'm holding up a map of Ireland. Half of Ireland is yellow.
And half of Ireland is marked in yellow. That's the market surveillance. When you ask if the market surveillance authority is out there checking, how can they if you've got 13 of the 26 counties affected in Ireland? To me, that's extremely disturbing. That's why I'm here.
Right.
You have an iron sulfide mineral problem. Pyrite and peritite. Mica accelerates the oxidation, and pyrite oxidizes 100 times faster. Peritite oxidizes 100 times faster than pyrite. Peritite is lethal to concrete. And if you have pyrite and peritite, somebody's not following EN 12620. That's your directive from Europe. That's your regulation. That's what the the European standards trump any national standard.
Okay.
So you should be using peritite in IS 465
Debbie,
colon 218.
Colon 218. Debbie, it's been wonderful chatting to you. We look forward to listening to you a little later on. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
And as always, thank you so much.
Thank you,
And
Greg.
also, last but not least, Damien, is there anything that you wanted to say before you wrapped up? Because I just want to...
It is a very complex situation, and you know the diagram Debbie's showing there, that would, you know, many of our members had fed back to us and we'd fed back where necessary that, you know, the scale of the problem and the issue has been noticed in other areas. There has been a huge amount of, I suppose, surveys undertaken by our members, and I think that represents a wealth of knowledge that people can look at and I suppose get to the bottom of this problem.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Debbie. Yes.
Damien, you started out with 38 Engineers Ireland. When you submitted your letter of submission, you were down to 30. How many registered Engineers of Ireland do you have left for this scheme?
There's currently still 30 on the scheme.
There's still 30, even with the situation with no indemnity insurance. And
we're recruiting more, yes. So we do need more.
Yeah, I know there's only 2 that can get it in all of Ireland. That's Paul Ford and Aidan O'Connell. The rest of you are held almost like with both hands tied behind your back without insurance. And the fact that you started with 38 and now you're down to 30.
Well, we could start the conversation from there, Debbie. But listen, this is a sample of what's to come here at this conference. Thank you very much for your time, all of you. Back with more as we come towards the end of this special programme from the Clannery here as part of the Science and Societal Impacts of Defective Concrete discussion programme. All right, back in a moment.
The 9 Till Noon Show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
True comfort food. What is that? Food you can enjoy a bit more because you know you can trust it. Like pork and bacon with the Boardbia quality mark. It's reassuring to know someone's always out there inspecting how it's produced and where it comes from. So you can enjoy a tasty rasher sandwich, a carbonara, or delicious roast pork. Always choose pork and bacon with the Boardbia quality mark for the highest standards, verified at every stage. And for recipes, visit boardbia.ie/pork and bacon.
Years ago, I used to dread my motor insurance renewal. Then a friend told me about O'Malley Scanlon Insurance in Ballybofey and Dunlow. They do all the hard work. They contact all the major insurance underwriters and they get the very best possible quote for me. They have saved me a small fortune over the years, and they could do the same for you.
When your insurance comes up for renewal, contact O'Malley Scanlon Insurance at their Ballybofey office on 9131020 or their Dunlow office on 952206. O'Malley Scanlon is regulated by the Central Bank.
Give the gift of discovery this Christmas with an overnight escape or a meal they're sure to remember in that place they love or the one they'd love to try. Buy a voucher for one of Ireland's amazing hotels or restaurants today and support Irish businesses while getting a head start on your Christmas shopping. Brought to you by Fáilte Ireland.
Century Complex gift cards are the perfect gift this Christmas. Our gift cards can be used throughout the complex in Backstage Bar and Grill, Century Cinemas and Century Play. Available in-store at Century Complex. Call us on 074 912 1976 or check out our website centurycinemas.ie for more information.
Hi, I'm Ellie, first year student in ATU Donegal. Are you considering your university choices? Atlantic Technological University will be hosting an open day in the Letterkenny campus on Thursday, 17th November from 9:30 to 2. Meet our academic experts, explore our campus facilities, connect with our student ambassadors and experience all that ATU Donegal has to offer. Visit atu.ie/Donegal Open Day. See you there!
Hello, Dream Inspector. 50 grand. Got it. Wait, 10 winners of 50 grand each every Tuesday and Friday? So every Euro Millions draw till Christmas is guaranteed 10 Irish winners of 50 grand each?
10 Ireland-only raffle winners of €50,000 guaranteed in every Euro Millions draw till Christmas. The National Lottery. It could be you. Play responsibly. Play for fun. All Euro Millions Ireland-only raffle draws until December 23rd.
Cutting through the spin. The 9 Till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
Okay, John O'Connor is an appointee of the Minister for Housing, Dara O'Brien. He's a Home Liaison on revised scheme and a full member of the government-appointed working group on defective blocks with homeowners, former CEO of the housing agency and oversaw the Pyrite scheme rollout. John is joining us via telephone. John, I hope you can hear me okay. Good morning to you.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Right, okay, so when are we expecting to see this enhanced scheme rolled out?
We'd expect the enhanced scheme to be rolled out early next year, so whether it be next February or March. So but it'd be important for everyone to know, like, the existing scheme is still in place, so anyone applying today, they apply under the existing scheme, and the new scheme, say, will come in place next year.
But with all due respect, John, it would be a bit foolish to apply to the 90-10 scheme and having to spend €6,000 or €7,000 getting your house tested when you could wait for the enhanced scheme, and that cost would be much less.
Yeah, no, it'd be, Greg, it would be a lot, better, for someone, to wait, because in terms of applying under the new scheme, the cost from the homeowner's perspective would be the cost of having a building condition assessment carried out by an engineer or another building professional, which is a visual examination of a house, and submitting that with your application, and that would probably cost the order of €500 or €600. So it definitely would be better to wait until the new scheme is in place from a cost point of view. When
will we know, and that knowledge being based in science, whether or not an outer leaf only solution is acceptable, or whether or not foundations are included or not? When will we know that for certainty?
Well, under the new arrangement, the homeowner lodges the application to the local authorities. In case of Donegal, it would be to Donegal County Council. They will refer that application then to the housing agency, who will carry out the assessment. They'll use engineers to carry out an assessment of the house. They'll carry out testing, and then determine whether there's a requirement to demolish and rebuild the house, or a requirement to replace the external leaf. One thing that's very important under the new legislation is where it's a remediation option, such as replacing external leaf, there will be a 40-year guarantee with that. So if there is any issues from the homeowner...
Is that extended, John, to the foundations if they were to begin to fail, or just the inner leaf?
It would be, currently to do with the walls, themselves, the concrete block walls. But the expectation would be that, if there was any issue, including the foundations, that guarantee would apply.
That will be contained formally, because obviously an expectation is that it'd be nice, or you presume it should be, but will that actually be, written down effectively so people can have that assurance?
Yeah, so the actual guarantee, and it'll be provided to homeowners by way of a letter of assurance. So there'll be a very specific, kind of formal guarantee provided to homeowners, and that will be included in the regulations that are now being prepared. And so it'll be critical, obviously, from homeowners' perspective into the future.
Okay, what's the situation then, someone who gets their outer leaf done, for example, in terms of home insurance? I'm being told companies won't insure these properties, and who could, count as an asset or sell on a house that an insurance company won't stand over, even if it's repaired under a government scheme. So what's the situation in terms of the security of house insurance that people might want to enjoy?
No, there'd be a full expectation, that anyone who has their house remediated in accordance with what has been determined by the housing agency and has that guarantee, that there will not be difficulties with house insurance. And
but there currently is, John, with respect, there are people who've had their house repaired but can't get house insurance.
Yes, no, I appreciate that, and those issues, would have to be kind of resolved with the insurance industry. You need to make sure that the insurance industry are happy with that letter of guarantee, that form of guarantee, so that people can get house insurance. And if a situation arose that they couldn't, well, then we would have to change in terms of what was being recommended for remediation. But I'd be confident.
This is, John, with all due respect, though, with all due respect, a couple of months out from you saying this should be, this all seems very aspirational, a lot of expectation, a lot of, well, if that doesn't happen, we'll have to look at this. Should this not all really, these basic questions, should this not all be ironed out quite clear at this point, to give at least homeowners some certainty on one element of this process?
Yeah, there has been engagement with the insurance industry, and to ensure that they're in agreement with what is being put in place. So that work is being done and will be completed before a new system is in place. And I'd be confident that there won't be a difficulty with provisional house insurance under the new system.
Okay, but there currently is, so you hope that will be addressed. Finally, in terms of emergency funds that people might need to access to make their homes somewhat livable throughout the winter, or to be able to access monies for an emergency accommodation, you'd be well aware that people are living in very unfit houses at the moment, not only for their physical health, but their the detriment to their physical health, lung and what have you going forward. Is that money available now? If not, why not? When will it be available?
Yeah, I think, in terms of what people are going through and the kind of the appalling situation in terms of damage to their homes, the I have been, kind of pushing along with, others that alternative accommodation funding, should be put in place, where someone is approved for a house to be remediated, and if they need to.
But John, when will that happen?
Alternative accommodation.
When will that happen, John?
We need to address that.
When? Does people need to get out of their homes now?
Yes. I'd expect, where somebody has a case where they're approved that they need to leave their home, and their engineer who has assessed their home is putting that case forward, that can be done within weeks.
But should the scheme stalled at the moment, so they're in perpetuity in these unsafe houses? If their €15,000 runs out before work on repairing their house even begins, is there any capacity to increase that?
There would be capacity to increase it, but I think in terms of if someone is going to be out of their home long term, maybe they need maybe to look at the alternative accommodation option. Whether, in some cases, someone can provide a mobile home, in their property that they have a long term.
Is that really John? With all due respect, is that with everything that's going on in this country? Is that truly the government's response to this? That if they're going to be out for a long time, well, you know what, you need to look to buying yourself a mobile home. Is that actually government policy? Is that how you're dealing with this? That's really worrying.
It's not now in terms of government policy, in terms of what is the a kind of appropriate alternative accommodation, and if someone has a long-term accommodation need, there are provisions in terms of dealing with that.
Any plans to build modular homing?
No, there's no plans to do that. I think in terms of there's a scheme called the Pyrite Remediation Scheme, that has been running a number of years, and in that case, people have to find alternative accommodation, and it hasn't been a difficulty, when people know that they have to move out and find
with all due respect, John, how do you expect people to pay mortgages and rent for years? I don't understand. I don't think you understand exactly how difficult the situation is for people here, especially considering they're going to have to find tens of thousands of euro to even fix their house on the scheme. The numbers don't add up, John. It's really worrying if that's what you think the solution is.
No, I appreciate, Greg, in terms of the difficult situation people are in, and in terms of, again, alternative accommodation, the best way that works is that people are recouped their costs on an ongoing basis, that they're not building up, large costs that are not funded.
All right. John,
thanks
for your time this morning. All right, I appreciate it. John O'Connor, who's actually a representative there of the Minister for Housing, Dara O'Brien. Luke Ming Flanagan, MEP, you've helped to fund this conference. Your office has funded this conference. My word, we're so far, you think you've made so much progress in recognising the extent of this problem, dealing with it, and really, we're actually behind square one.
Well, look, throughout my life, I suffered from depression, and I have to say, having listened to that last man speaking there, he hasn't helped it, because you'd be damn well very depressed after listening to it. You'd have to ask the question, if it was his own house, or if it was these people's own houses, would they have better answers to the questions that were asked? I mean, to me, it seems like the solution from the government is get away with spending as little as possible, take as little responsibility, and no matter how much of a joke the proposals are, if we can get away with them, well, then push them through. I mean, the idea that you'd put an outer leaf on a house and not know what the long-term effects are going to be and put more of Irish taxpayers' money into it is farcical. The idea that you would carry out work on a house and do nothing about the foundations is policy by wishful thinking. Now, every morning I wake up and I have wishful thinking about stuff, but 10 minutes later, I get with reality and I do what has to be done. But sadly here it seems to be wishful thinking is the policy, and if we can get away with it and we can ram it down their throats, that's what they're going to do. Because listening to that last interview there, we hear about car crash interviews. That car will never drive again after that interview. It is sick. I would prefer not to be here today in this capacity. I would prefer if the government would drive on ahead and do what needs to be done and provide 100% redress with absolutely no cost to the homeowners who are not responsible for this. We're responsible for it, the people who run the country. And when it goes wrong, we are a collective. And as a collective, as a country, we should help everyone out. My house isn't going to be done, but any amount of money that it costs should come out of my tax to pay for this. But in the meantime, to make sure that things don't go quiet on it. When things go out of the media, things stop happening. If this conference achieves nothing else but put this out on the airwaves for 3 hours and get people talking about this and light a fire under politicians who think this will go away quietly, then it's been a success. But I have to say, that was hard listening there. And if I had a house that was affected by this, I would struggle to get through the rest of the day. It's a disgrace.
Martin McDermott, Councillor Martin McDermott, Chair of the Defective Block Steering Committee of Donegal County Council. It's hard to undo what we heard there in terms of really Donegal homeowners to some extent. You can't on your own get a mobile home.
Yeah, look.
Is that Greg, really it? Was that up until now? Was that your understanding of how we were going to deal with this would be?
No, absolutely not, Greg. I think what has been pushed for is very clear. The 15k of rent.
We've very little time, so I don't want us to talk about now what we think should happen because we've heard what's going to happen. So
I'm not so sure you've heard what's going to happen. To be fair.
But that's John O'Connor's the appointee of the Minister for Housing.
Yeah, well, he's a member of the housing agency. I don't think he's an appointee of Darragh O'Brien now. To be fair, but I think
he was appointed by Minister of Housing Darragh O'Brien as homeowner liaison.
Homeowner liaison, yes.
So you're saying he was or wasn't appointed? He was.
He was as homeowner liaison, yes. But I think to be clear here, and we have to be clear, the 15k is and has went through legislation. I think that there's people out there that needs that money today.
Yeah, but my point is they. 1 second, Martin. Am I frustrating you, Martin? I'm sorry. I apologise if I am.
I just want
to.
But
I've got about but they've said that €15,000 right is burnt through. Okay, in a year, and they're still a year from getting their housing fixed. But the important question is what happens after that.
That's exactly what I'm going to come on to. The 15k that has been went through legislation should be made available right away, but not just the 15k. The 15k is no good to any homeowner that has to leave their house today, that are not even through stage 1 of the application process. Even they are through stage 1, they still have at least another 9 months ahead of them before they're at stage 2 to start remediating their houses. Mm-hmm. So the 15k on its own is not the answer. So it has to come with the availability of that money being able for the homeowner for however long they're out of their home.
But it also has to stop coming out of the grant. You can't have someone living in accommodation for 4 years at a cost of whatever 40-50 grand, and then that's coming out of the grant. I mean, so it needs to come from a different funding source.
And it comes out of the grant if it's over the 420. So anybody that's under that, it will not come out of their grant. So I think you have to be clear on that as well for everybody out there. If you have to trigger the 420 before they'll be coming out of your grant. Mm-hmm. So I think, Greg, there are people out there that are in real need of this instantly because they're houses that people shouldn't be living in. But it can't be just a one-off 15k that's used up within a year. It has to be run out for the period that the person's out of their home.
Listen, thanks for your time this morning. We spoke a lot in the past and we will again in the future, and maybe we might do a follow-up interview for clarification on Mr. O'Connor's comments. Luke Min, people can still register to come down here. They can watch it on Facebook, I understand. We'll link that stuff. It's a significant conference, this, if you want to just maybe wrap it up in 30 seconds.
Yeah, it is a significant conference. As I said, if nothing else, it keeps the issue in the public's mind. And you made a very interesting point at the start. Should the government not be doing these studies? Well, there's plenty of evidence from the past where the government doesn't do it, and if the people do it, then subsequently the government moved. I worked with the turf cutters years ago. There was no proof that what we wanted to do could have actually been done. We put together a 200-page report ourselves. We presented to the European Union. They said they hadn't seen anything from our government in 15 years. And guess what? They're nearly implementing it to the letter of the law. So if the country doesn't do it, then sadly, but we will pick up the ball and we'll do it ourselves.
Okay.
And then we'll present them the evidence. And when they have the evidence, let them deal with science and not turn it into politics and do the bloody right thing.
MEP Luke Flanagan, thank you. Thanks to all of our guests today. Thanks to Emma, Donna Marie, Kevin for their support down here. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 9. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
The 9 Til Noon Show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering